Chapter 322. Now that the Outer Seas Island has been sealed by the 36 oceanic islands. Other than sages, no one else is allowed to enter. Third forefather, second forefather has gone to investigate, but there's been no news yet. Elder Rian briefly told him about the nameless island in the outer seas. Chu Kuangren could not help but feel curious when he heard that. The unnamed island that is suspected to be the residence of an emperor, and the 36 oceanic islands? Interesting, I should go and explore. Since the 36 oceanic islands have sealed it, the rest of you shall stay in the sect. I'll go and see what's going on. Chu Kuangren had made up his mind. The 36 oceanic islands was the collective name of the orthodoxies. Many of the 36 oceanic islands were no weaker than the sage orthodoxies of the four domains. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. Moreover, the 36 oceanic islands were the home of the 36 oceanic islands. With them sealing the unnamed island, it would be difficult for the sage orthodoxies of the four domains to intervene. No matter how arrogant the 36 oceanic islands were, they could not possibly stop all the sages from entering the island. That would be no different from declaring war on the sage orthodoxies of the four domains. By the way, Elder Rian, here are some IOUs. If the owner of these IOUs does not pay up within a month, send them a notice. If they still don't pay up, we'll talk about it when I return. Chu Kuangren took out a stack of IOUs and handed it to Elder Rian. Elder Rian looked at the stack of IOUs in her hand. IOUs? There are so many of them. She looked at the number on the card and her eyes widened, her face full of shock. The Taoist School of Dedication owes us 200 million top-tier soulstones. The Eight-Wind Palace owes us 50 million top-tier soulstones. The Thunder Falcon Tribe owes us 450 million. Oh my god. Sect leader, what have you done? Elder Rian looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. The other elders were also dumbfounded when they saw the numbers on the IOUs. These are the stakes. You can ask Nangong Huang and the others for the details. Alright, I'll take my leave now. Chu Kuangren then left the Black Heaven sect alone. He did not even bring Lan Yu, who had always been by his side. The situation on the unnamed island was still unknown, and most of the people who were heading there were sages. It was not something that an ordinary cultivator could interfere with. If he brought others along, Chu Kuangren was worried that he would not be able to take care of them if anything happened. Overseas, on a nameless island, because it was sealed off by the 36 oceanic islands, there were countless immortal boats and countless checkpoints within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. All cultivators passing through this area would be stopped and interrogated. For those who insisted on barging in, the cultivators from the 36 oceanic islands would kill them on the spot. They were extremely overbearing. With Chu Kuangren's cultivation level, he was not afraid of being discovered by these outer seas cultivators. He turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the unnamed island. Along the way, he was almost unimpeded, because no one could catch up to him. The closer Chu Kuangren got, the more he could sense a powerful surge of Taoist rhyme. It was an extremely dense emperor's aura. Very soon, then he saw a huge island. The island was shrouded in clouds and mist, making it impossible to see its face clearly. However, some of the scenes that were vaguely revealed were already like a fairyland. Apart from that, the island was also the source of the emperor's aura. This is the nameless island. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. However, just as he was about to approach, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his path. An enchanted boundary? Just as Chu Kuangren was puzzled, a few figures suddenly appeared in front of him. These people all had extraordinary auras. Even the weakest among them was at the honorable level. This area has been sealed by the 36 oceanic islands. All cultivators below the sage level must leave immediately, the leading elder said. He glanced at Chu Kuangren and frowned. Although Chu Kuangren looked extraordinary, he was too young. Forget a sage. He suspected that Chu Kuangren was not even an honorable. How did someone like him enter this place? Were the patrolling teams at the outer perimeter useless? Oh, the 36 oceanic islands. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and scanned the few people before him. Liao Yun, Ethereal Island Lord, Honorable Supreme. Chu Shan, Thousand Rock Island Cultivator, Honorable Supreme. These people were all the higher-ups of the 36 oceanic islands, and there was even an island lord among them, especially the leading elder, Liao Yun. As the ethereal island lord, his status was no less than a sect leader of a sage orthodoxy. I am the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren. Please make way. Chu Kuangren said. The few people looked at each other when they heard his name. Liao Yun frowned and said, I don't care who you are. If you're not a sage, leave. Chu Kuangren was stunned. No way, there are still people who don't know me? Just how isolated is the 36 oceanic islands? You don't even know me? Chu Kuangren said in surprise. Are you famous? One of the cultivators asked. Chu Kuangren was speechless. He heard that the outer seas cultivators rarely communicated with the four domains. Some of them would only receive news once every few decades. He did not expect that to be true. He had only become famous in the past few years. Everyone in the four domains knew about him, but not many people in the outer seas knew about him. Do I have to force my way in? Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold as he unconsciously placed his hand on the hilt of his descendant self-sword. At that moment, Liao Yun and the others felt their scalps go numb as a chill surged through their limbs. A great enemy. Liao Yun and the others' expressions became extremely solemn. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to force his way in, a ray of light suddenly appeared not far away. It was an old man dressed in purple robes with a stern expression. Liao Yun and the others' expressions changed when they saw this person. Greetings, Lifeblood Sage. Liao Yun and the others stepped forward and bowed. Compared to Chu Kuangren, this Lifeblood Sage had become famous thousands of years ago. His fame was so great that everyone knew him back then. Yes. Lifeblood Sage nodded slightly. He glanced at Chu Kuangren, and when he saw his face clearly, his expression changed slightly as he quickly went forward to greet him. Greetings, Brother Chu. I'm the Sage of the Jiang Valley, Lifeblood Sage. Lifeblood Sage smiled. A fellow Taoist from the Jiang Valley. Greetings. I didn't expect Brother Chu to come to the outer seas to explore the nameless island so soon after returning from the first city. Why don't we go together? Lifeblood Sage said. He knew that Chu Kuangren was incredibly powerful, so exploring the nameless island with him would definitely be a win-win situation. One could even say that he was trying to ride on Chu Kuangren's coattails. I'd love to, but these outer seas cultivators said that only sages can enter, so they won't let me in. What? How can something like that happen? Lifeblood Sage's expression darkened. He looked at Liao Yun and the others and said, Brother Chu may not be a sage, but his strength is stronger than a sage's. He definitely has the right to enter. Get out of the way. Are you kidding me? How dare you block Chu Kuangren's way? Do you want to live? Chapter 323. Liao Yun and the others were dumbfounded. What kind of ability did this young man have that even a sage had to treat him with such respect? Even other sages would not be this respectful. What kind of existence did they just stop? Sect Leader Chu, please forgive us for offending you earlier. Liao Yun and the others were not stupid. Of course, they knew that someone that Lifeblood Sage would treat with such respect was not a simple character. His background might be even more terrifying than an ordinary sage. At times like this, they had to be afraid. Can I go in now? Please. Liao Yun did not dare to stop them. He quickly opened the enchanted boundary and let Chu Kuangren and Lifeblood Sage in. On the unnamed island, Chu Kuangren and Lifeblood Sage had arrived. As soon as they set foot on the island, a vast emperor's aura enveloped them and suppressed their strength. Such a strong emperor's aura. It seems that this place really is the residence of an emperor. Lifeblood Sage said in surprise. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded. He was glad that he did not bring anyone else with him. With such a strong emperor's aura, anyone below the level of a sage would find it hard to move, let alone explore the unnamed island with him. Chu Kuangren immediately activated his treasure locating skill the moment he stepped onto the island. This divine ability was the most suitable for searching for opportunities of fortune. Chu Kuangren was speechless as he searched. There were indeed many treasures here. Most of them were supreme elixirs that grew on the island, and even the most inferior ones were of the honorable grade. There were even sage-grade medicines that were rarely seen in the outside world. Buzz. At that moment, a strange fluctuation came from not far away. It was the fluctuation of a supreme elixir that contained a strong Taoist rhyme and wood-based energy. Lifeblood Sage was delighted when he sensed the fluctuation. That's great. I didn't expect to encounter such a supreme elixir the moment I arrived. Brother Chu, let's head over quickly, Lifeblood Sage said excitedly. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while before he said, Lifeblood Sage, this is the aura of some supreme elixir. I'm sure many sages have sensed it, and a battle is bound to break out. I don't want to waste my time here. I want to go take a look somewhere else. Lifeblood Sage was dumbfounded. What? Is Chu Kuangren afraid of a battle? He thought for a moment and felt that the other party should have his own plans, so he nodded. Then I'll go take a look myself. He still couldn't resist the temptation of that precious medicine. Judging from its aura, it was very likely to be a saint herb. Origin Sage, be careful. Alright, take care, fellow Taoist Chu. After saying that, the Vital Essence Sage skimmed in the direction of the supreme elixir. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, dashed in another direction. There was also a stalk of saint medicine there. Moreover, this saint medicine was much more precious than the saint medicine that was giving off a strong aura. The sage-grade herb that the Lifeblood Sage sensed had just ascended, which was why it was emitting such a strong aura. On the other hand, the one that Chu Kuangren found with his treasure-locating skill had been a sage-grade herb for an unknown period of time. Not only that, but that newly upgraded precious medicine would definitely attract many saints. At that time, it would be hard to avoid a battle. On the other hand, the sage-grade herb that Chu Kuangren had found with his treasure-locating skill had probably not been discovered by anyone yet, so it would not take much effort for him to obtain it. He did not tell Origin Essence Sage about this. After all, Chu Kuangren had the treasure-locating skill, which allowed him to locate all kinds of treasures in no time. If Lifeblood Sage continued to stay by his side, there would inevitably be a division of loot. If it was Chu Kuangren alone, he could monopolize everything. The human heart was always selfish. After all, Chu Kuangren was not a selfless person. Soon he arrived at a valley. On the mountain wall of this valley, there was a sage-grade herb that was golden in color and had mysterious Taoist rhymes on its leaves. It was a very mysterious sight. Chu Kuangren went to the mountain wall, plucked it, and put it into his yin and yang ring. Easy peasy, a sage-grade herb in my hands. Chu Kuangren smirked. He was in a good mood, so he continued to search with his treasure-locating skill. Information about all kinds of treasures on the unnamed island was fed back into Chu Kuangren's mind. This was especially true in the center of the island, where several kinds of treasures were hidden that could trigger a strong reaction from the treasure-locating skill. 8,000 kilometers south, unknown emperor-grade item. 8,000 kilometers south, unknown emperor-grade item. It was Chu Kuangren's first time receiving information about an unknown emperor-grade item, but he was able to make some guesses. There must be some kind of hidden treasure in the center of the island, which was why the treasure-locating skill could not accurately sense what it was. However, something that could be related to an emperor was definitely extraordinary. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while, but he was not in a hurry to go there. He figured that the other sages would not be able to find out if there was a technique that could isolate the treasure-locating skill from detection. He decided on a route and headed towards the center of the island while collecting other treasures on the island. Many sages were gathered on the unnamed island. Here, the sages were searching for all kinds of opportunities of fortune on the island, and the number of opportunities of fortune there was enough to amaze even the sages. This place must have been a place where an emperor lived. Due to the influence of the emperor's aura, it gave birth to many treasures. Because of one person, a treasure land was formed. Moreover, this was just the exposure of the emperor's aura. One could only imagine how powerful an emperor was. Of course, although there were many treasures, the competition was also extremely fierce. Moreover, it was a battle between sages. The scale of the battle was rarely seen since ancient times. While Chu Kuangren was collecting treasures, he saw sages fighting from time to time. The momentum of the battle was earth-shattering. In the outside world, sages were high and mighty, standing above billions of living beings. It was extremely difficult to even meet one, let alone fight. However, in this place, sages were no different from ordinary people. For the sake of a treasure, there were many people who would fight to the death. Boom. Just as Chu Kuangren arrived at a cliff, he suddenly heard a huge commotion coming from not far away. It shook the entire mountain range. Needless to say, it was the sages fighting again. Chu Kuangren was not interested in these fights. He was still busy collecting the various treasures on the island. However, things did not go according to plan. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to collect the treasures and leave, a palm energy swept past him and hit the mountain wall. With a loud explosion, the mountain wall was instantly shattered. Chu Kuangren was unharmed, but the Sage Grade Supreme Elixir that he was about to collect was destroyed by that palm attack. Although he already had a pile of Sage Grade Supreme Elixirs in his Yin and Yang ring, he did not care about this Sage Grade Supreme Elixir at all. However, it was something that he had his eyes on. Now that it was destroyed, he could not take it lying down. Chu Kuangren spread his spiritual thought. Let me see which B** destroyed my supreme elixir. Soon, his spiritual thought arrived at the place where the sages were fighting. Although his spiritual thought was destroyed by the powerful shockwaves of the battle as soon as it got close, he could still see the faces of the two people. He was quite familiar with one of them. It's the School of White Lotus's sage. Looks like I can't just ignore this. Chu Kuangren murmured as his figure turned into a stream of light and dashed away. Chapter 324. The School of White Lotus and the Black Heaven sect were allies. Before Chu Kuangren had fully matured, an honorable supreme from the School of White Lotus had offered to protect him. Back in the first city, the School of White Lotus's sage had even publicly expressed her willingness to help Chu Kuangren fight against a few other sages. Now that the School of White Lotus's sage was in trouble, Chu Kuangren would not sit idly by. His figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards her. At this time, in the sky above a valley, two sages were engaged in a battle. One was a man and the other was a woman. The woman was the School of White Lotus's sage. The man wore a set of black armor and held a long spear in his hand. His aura was unstoppable, and every thrust of his spear would form a terrifying black tornado that forced the School of White Lotus's sage to retreat. Immemorial Sage, you should just surrender. The Immemorial Sage was the title of the School of White Lotus's sage. The man in armor seemed to be very familiar with her. Ravenblade Sage, you want me to surrender? Dream on. The Immemorial Sage glared at the Ravenblade Sage coldly. She stared back at him with hatred in her eyes. The Ravenblade Sage grinned when he saw the hatred in his opponent's eyes. Looks like you're still holding a grudge against Qianin. Shut up. You have no right to mention her name, the Immemorial Sage said coldly. She waved her hand and unleashed a white ray of light, but it was easily shattered by the Ravenblade Sage. Why not? No matter what, she's still my wife. The Ravenblade Sage chuckled as if he was trying to provoke the Immemorial Sage. B****. Back when you and Qianin got married, you swore to me that you would take good care of her. But in the end, you sacrificed her to the so-called serpent deity just to become a sage. You deserve to die. The White Lotus Sage was furious. With a wave of her hand, rays of white light shot out from her palm. It was the School of White Lotus's light of purification. However, the Ravenblade Sage was obviously stronger. As he waved his spear, a black tornado surrounded his body and shattered the white light. Now that we're done reminiscing, it's time to end you. Don't worry, I'll bring your corpse back. The next time we sacrifice it to the serpent deity, your sage body will be the best sacrifice. The Ravenblade Sage burst into laughter as an extremely overbearing sage Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. Black Snake Devour. As he struck out with his spear, his boundless Taoist rhymes mixed with his spiritual power transformed into a ferocious-looking black snake shadow that charged towards the Immemorial Sage. In the face of this attack, Immemorial Sage would not be able to withstand it. At this moment, white lotuses suddenly surrounded the Immemorial Sage, containing some sort of powerful purifying power. They disintegrated the Ravenblade Sage's attacks one by one, leaving the Immemorial Sage unharmed. What? The Ravenblade Saint's expression changed drastically. You've learned the White Lotus light of purification left behind by the White Lotus Saint ruler? He had some understanding of the White Lotus Society. He knew that these White Lotuses were the White Lotus Society's supreme defensive technique, the White Lotus light of purification. No, you didn't do this. Soon, the Ravenblade Sage realized that the Taoist rhyme of the White Lotuses did not come from the immemorial sage. Instead, it came from someone else. The immemorial sage seemed to have thought of something, and she could not help but smile. Ravenblade Sage, your doomsday is here. She turned around and looked into the distance. All she saw was a white-robed, wide-sleeved figure walking through the air. That otherworldly aura of his made everything in the world pale in comparison to him. The Ravenblade Sage looked at the newcomer solemnly. Who are you? Immemorial Sage, I'm protecting you. Chu Kuangren said without hesitation. Just because you said so? You're looking down on me a little too much. The Ravenblade Sage raised his arm and attacked Chu Kuangren. With a thrust of his spear, a black tornado swept out. However, Chu Kuangren did not move an inch. Instead, mysterious white lotuses appeared around him, disintegrating the black tornado one by one. The White Lotus light of purification. Who are you to the school of White Lotus? The Ravenblade Sage's pupils dilated. Chu Kuangren had used the White Lotus light of purification to easily block his attacks. Even the immemorial sage could not compare to him in terms of ability. Brother Chu, you mustn't let this person leave. The immemorial sage yelled with a deep hatred in her voice. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. It seemed that this sage had quite a grudge with the immemorial sage. This is bad. Let's retreat first. The Ravenblade Sage did not dare to stay any longer after he realized that Chu Kuangren was not an easy opponent. His figure turned into a shadow and disappeared on the spot. Trying to escape. Chu Kuangren chuckled. A black chain suddenly appeared in his hand. It was the Soul Retriever that he had not used for a long time. The Soul Retriever turned into a black ray of light. Its speed was even faster than the escaping Ravenblade Sage. It did not take long for it to catch up to him. It wrapped around him tightly and dragged him back. A minute. What is this thing? Let go of me. The Ravenblade Sage continuously channeled his spiritual power to resist the Soul Retriever. However, it was futile. With Chu Kuangren's current cultivation level, even a sage would find it hard to escape once he was caught by the Soul Retriever. Only a great sage would have a chance of escaping. Thank you, Brother Chu. The immemorial sage came before the Ravenblade Sage with a deep hatred in her eyes. I shall avenge Qianin today. She raised her hand and slammed it onto the Ravenblade Sage's body. The horrifying energy instantly sent the Ravenblade Sage flying back with blood spewing out of his mouth. When he landed on the ground, a crater of a few dozen feet was formed. The immemorial sage was still not appeased. She came to the crater and continuously slammed her palm against the Ravenblade Sage. One palm after another. A violent surge of palm chi spread out and expanded the crater to a few hundred feet wide. Chu Kuangren was speechless as he watched from the side. It seemed like there was a grudge between the two of them. However, he did not ask any questions nor did he stop the immemorial sage. On one side was an ally, and on the other side was a stranger. It was obvious which side he should help. Under the restraint of the Soul Retriever, the Ravenblade Sage could not resist at all. Soon he was beaten half to death. Killing you just like that is too easy for you, the immemorial sage said coldly as she stared at the bloodied Ravenblade Sage on the ground. Chu Kuangren gently tugged on the Soul Retriever from the side. The hook of the Soul Retriever pierced into the Ravenblade Sage's body. After stirring it for a while, the Ravenblade Sage's soul was hooked out. This is his soul. Attacking his soul will make him suffer 100 times the pain, Chu Kuangren said. The immemorial sage's eyes lit up. Thank you. You're welcome. The Ravenblade Sage glared at Chu Kuangren. B*****, I've never met you before. Why must you harm me like this? You scum. Everyone has the right to punish you. The immemorial sage condensed her spiritual power into a white needle and ruthlessly pierced it into the Ravenblade Sage's soul. The soul-piercing pain made the Ravenblade sage scream as his soul started to tremble violently. The immemorial sage did not stop there. The spiritual needles continued to pierce into the Ravenblade sage's soul. With every pierce, his soul would weaken a little. In the end, the Ravenblade sage was tortured to death by the immemorial sage. Chapter 325. After killing the Ravenblade sage, the immemorial sage heaved a sigh of relief. Tianyin, I've avenged you. Chu Kuangren watched from the side and quietly put away the soul retriever. Thank you for your help, Brother Chu. After the immemorial sage vented her emotions, she walked up to Chu Kuangren and bowed. You're welcome. Chu Kuangren said with a curious look on his face. I wonder what kind of grudge you have with this sage, Brother Taoist, for you to hate him so much. It's a long story. Immemorial sage smiled bitterly. She briefly explained what had happened. It turned out that the immemorial sage had a younger sister. When she was young, she traveled around the world and met the Ravenblade sage, who was also traveling at that time. The two of them met and fell in love with each other. After that, the younger sister of the immemorial sage ignored the objections of the White Lotus Society and resolutely followed the Ravenblade sage to settle down overseas. She became the wife of the island lord of the Ravenwind Island. However, as time passed, so did the Ravenblade saint. In order to transcend the tribulation and become a sage, the Ravenblade sage sacrificed his lover to a terrifying being known as the Serpent God. After hearing the news, immemorial sage was filled with grief and indignation. She went to Ravengale Island, but due to her limited power she was unable to take revenge. If it weren't for the fact that I had to watch over the White Lotus cult all these years, I would have dragged this scum down with me even if I had to sacrifice my life. I didn't expect to meet this person again on this trip to this nameless island. I'm very grateful for your help, fellow Chu. Immemorial sage bowed again. It was obvious that she was very grateful to Chu Kuangren. Despite being a sage, she still bowed to him repeatedly. Brother Qianyu, there's no need to be so courteous. The Black Heaven sect and the School of White Lotus are allies. Moreover, this scum deserves to be punished. Chu Kuangren glanced at the Ravenblade sage's corpse on the ground. He then lifted his arm to unleash the gluttonous devouring technique, sucking the corpse into the avarice dimension and refining it. Seeing this, immemorial sage's eyes gleamed with joy. It would be best if the Ravenblade sage died without a complete corpse. Speaking of which, I'm quite interested in that serpent deity. Brother Qianyu, do you know who it is? Chu Kuangren asked. Immemorial sage shook her head. The origin of the serpent deity is a mystery. All we know is that its strength is terrifying. It is the deity worshipped by the 36 oceanic islands. Every once in a while, a large number of sacrifices will be offered to it. Even the sages have to bow down to him. Yes. Immemorial sage nodded slightly. Looks like it's indeed a terrifying existence. Chu Kuangren pondered for a moment before he put the matter aside for the time being. Boom. At this moment, the island suddenly shook. Ripples appeared in the space in the distance, and an incredibly heavy emperor's aura instantly engulfed the entire island. This emperor's aura was far stronger than the one before. Chu Kuangren's expression changed slightly as he looked into the distance. There's a quasi-emperor body 3,000 kilometers to the south. 3,000 miles to the south, there is an incomplete emperor's body. There's a damaged monarch weapon 3,000 li south. The feedback of the treasure-seeking art came. He could now accurately sense the aura of those treasures. The barrier that isolated these few treasures has disappeared. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes as he dashed towards the center of the island. Seeing this, the immemorial sage followed closely behind. In the center of the nameless island, a thatched cottage appeared out of nowhere, and the incredibly dense emperor's aura emanated from this cottage. The sages on the island sensed this aura and rushed over. Soon, the area around the cottage was surrounded by sages, but no one dared to step within 100 meters of the cottage. It was as if the area within 100 meters of the cottage was a forbidden area. This island is located in the outer seas, not within the 4 domains. Therefore, the items in this cottage should belong to the outer seas sages. At that moment, one of the outer seas sages said, The other Outer Seas sages agreed with him. Not bad, Sage Lu has a point. Let's not talk about the items in this cottage. Logically speaking, this entire nameless island should belong to the 36 oceanic islands. Allowing the 4 domains sages to explore this island is already the best we can do. That's right. Please leave now. The Outer Seas sages began to ostracize the 4 domains sages. The 4 domains sages did not look too pleased. Aren't you Outer Seas being too overbearing? This nameless island has no owner, so what right do you have to claim that it belongs to you? Just because you're living in the ocean? You're making a fool of yourself. Black Heaven's second forefather snorted coldly. The other 4 domains sages also supported him. Black Heaven's second forefather is right. According to this logic, if I live in the Vermilion Bird domain, doesn't that mean that the entire Vermilion Bird domain belongs to me? That's right. You don't even think about what you're saying. This is ridiculous. The 4 domains sages and the Outer Seas sages were in a heated argument. However, it was obvious that the 4 domains sages were at a disadvantage. After all, this was the Outer Seas sages' territory. When the nameless island appeared, the 36 oceanic islands were the first to discover it. They also had the most sages, numbering more than 30. The 4 domains sages were far away. Although they had sensed the situation on the nameless island, there were less than 20 of them present. In short, this cottage belongs to the Outer Seas. Cultivators from the 4 domains are not allowed to interfere. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless. An Outer Seas sage snorted coldly. He was the leader of the sages and also one of the most powerful sages present. He had already reached the great sage level. The 4 domain sages were extremely displeased at his words. Some of the more hot-tempered ones even rolled up their sleeves, ready to fight. However, they were stopped by some rational sages. The Outer Seas sages had the advantage in numbers. If a fight broke out, the situation would not be optimistic for the 4 domain sages. D**M*. Are we just going to watch these Outer Seas sages act so arrogantly? One of the sages said indignantly. Everyone please leave. The Outer Seas sage said calmly. Eversodden sage, do you really want to do this? Black Heaven's second forefather said coldly. So what if I do? Eversodden sage snorted. If you guys don't leave now, don't blame us for asking you to leave. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere at the scene immediately became hostile. The Outer Seas sages stood behind Eversodden sage, glaring coldly at the 4 domain sages. It seemed like they would attack at any time. Oh, I'd like to see who dares to ask us to leave. At that moment, an indifferent voice drifted into everyone's ears. 2 figures walked out from behind the 4 domain sages. They were a man and a woman, and the one who spoke was the young man in front. It's the School of White Lotus Immemorial Sage and Chu Kuangren. He's here. The 4 domain sages' eyes glimmered when they saw who it was. When Chu Kuangren walked into the crowd, the sages around him immediately retreated and opened up a path for him. Greetings, second forefather, third forefather. Chu Kuangren came before the Black Heaven's second forefather and third forefather and greeted them with a fist salute. Kuangren, you're here. Black Heaven's second forefather looked at Chu Kuangren with a gratified expression. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He then looked at the Outer Sea sages and said, the treasures in this cottage belong to the most capable. Let's all compete fairly. I'd like to see who can force us to leave. Chapter 326. I'd like to see who can force us to leave. As soon as he said that, the sages of the 4 domains behind Chu Kuangren unleashed their powerful auras. Eversodden sage's eyes flashed as he stared at Chu Kuangren. He realized that Chu Kuangren's appearance had given the 4 domain sages an inexplicable sense of confidence. He was like a pillar that held up the 4 domain sages. Since when did the 4 domains have someone like him? Eversodden sage was a little shocked. May I know your name? I'm the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren. Eversodden sage was even more shocked when he heard that name. He had heard of Chu Kuangren before. Chu Kuangren had been quite famous for the past few years. Although he was not very famous in the Outer Seas, Eversodden sage still knew about him. He was a peerless sky pride. However, How could a sky pride give the sages such confidence? Isn't this a little too strange? Unfortunately, although Ever-Sodden Sage knew who Chu Kuangren was, he did not know much about him. Otherwise he would not have such doubts. Chu Kuangren was no longer the same person he was in the past. He had single-handedly fought 6 sages in the first city and suppressed a great sage. His strength had long been recognized by the other sages. Without a doubt, Chu Kuangren was their most reliable ally at this time. The 4 domain sages are really regressing. A bunch of sages actually have to rely on a Black Heaven sect leader, who's not even a sage to give orders. One of the Outer Seas sage could not help but sneer. He looked at Chu Kuangren. Kid, you may be a peerless sky pride in the 4 domains for becoming a sect leader at such a young age, but you better take a good look at the situation here. Everyone here is a sage, so there's no place for that kid to speak. Get lost. That Outer Seas sage snorted and launched a palm attack at Chu Kuangren. His goal was simple. He wanted to cripple Chu Kuangren first, then force the 4 domain sages to leave. No matter how powerful Chu Kuangren was, even if he made the boldest assumption that he could fight a sage, so what? The Outer Seas sages had an absolute advantage here. Even if they were to fight, the 4 domain sages would not be able to gain any advantage. The surging sage Taoist rhyme locked onto Chu Kuangren. That palm attack was like a bolt of lightning that could not be blocked by anyone below the level of a sage. Just when the Outer Seas sages thought that Chu Kuangren would be severely injured by that attack, Chu Kuangren casually lifted his fair palm and launched a palm attack as well. The fair palm collided with the palm of the saint that was attacking him. In that instant, an incomparably terrifying shockwave erupted. 2 completely different Taoist rhymes collided with each other. Then the outcome was decided in an instant. That Outer Seas sage let out a blood-curdling scream. His palm cheese Taoist rhyme was forcefully shattered by Chu Kuangren. His arm exploded, his bones pierced through his flesh, and his entire body was blasted hundreds of meters away. This scene caused all the overseas sages to narrow their eyes, and their faces to be filled with shock. However, the sages of the 4 territories remained calm and composed, clearly not surprised by this scene. How could this be? What a terrifying power. Is this really the power of someone below the saint level? How did this guy do it? It was the first time the Outer Seas sages witnessed Chu Kuangren's combat strength, so they could not help but be shocked. Even their Taoist cores trembled. Now, is there anyone else who wants to force us to leave? Chu Kuangren swept his gaze across the crowd as a surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme rapidly rose from his body. The Outer Seas sages were filled with fear. Ever-Sodden Sage, who was the leader, stared at Chu Kuangren as his aura continued to rise as well. A terrifying surge of great sage Taoist rhyme filled the air. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, stood still as his Taoist rhyme circulated. The Taoist rhyme that belonged to the 8 celestial demonic chords instantly gushed out. Vaguely, the sound of Guqin music could be heard in the void. The Da was chordless. It could be played even without a chord. This kind of musical Tao realm and Taoist rhyme made Ever-Sodden Sage's eyes reveal an unprecedented seriousness. This guy is clearly not a sage, but his Taoist rhyme is on par with a great sage like me. How did he do it? Ever-Sodden Sage was puzzled, but he was also extremely fearful. All right, then we shall do as you say. The treasures in this cottage shall belong to whoever is capable. Ever-Sodden Sage said after pondering for a while. Chu Kuangren's strength was unfathomable, and their main goal now was to obtain the treasures in the cottage. Hence, Ever-Sodden Sage did not want to have any conflict with Chu Kuangren at this time. Very well. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Since they had reached an agreement, the crowd once again turned their attention to the cottage that was hundreds of meters away. Their eyes were filled with passion. With such a powerful emperor's aura, there must be some incredible treasures in that cottage. Was it an emperor scripture? Or an emperor weapon? Could it be the body of some great emperor? The crowd secretly speculated as their hearts burned with passion. The emperor's aura within hundreds of meters of this cottage is on a completely different level compared to outside. If you want to enter the cottage, you'll have to pass through these hundreds of meters of emperor's aura. Even a sage would find it difficult to do that. Ever-Sodden Sage said. Let's see who's capable then. The treasures inside the cottage shall belong to whoever enters first, one of the sages said. He then stepped into the hundreds of meters of Emperor's aura and slowly walked towards the cottage. The rest of the sages followed suit. A sage could traverse thousands of kilometers with a single step, but now, the group of sages was stumbling within the hundreds of meters of the cottage. If word of this were to spread, many people would be scared witless. Kwangren, let's go too, Black Heaven's third and second forefather said before they too walked into the range of the Emperor's aura. Chu Kwangren lifted his foot and walked in too. In an instant, a terrifying Emperor's aura pressed down on him like a huge mountain. It's really strong. Chu Kwangren's expression froze. No one below the level of a sage could withstand this Emperor's aura. Even an honorable supreme would be flattened to the ground if they went near it. Even a sage would find it extremely difficult to walk. Not only that, but the closer they got to the cottage, the more terrifying the Emperor's aura became. Boom. A sage could no longer withstand the Emperor's aura after walking for hundreds of meters. He was flattened to the ground by it. Boom, boom, boom. Another few sages were flattened to the ground. It's too powerful. A sage won't be able to withstand this Emperor's aura. Terrifying. The few sages who were lying on the ground stared at the cottage in horror. That was the Emperor's aura. Even though it was not a complete Emperor's aura, it was enough to crush a sage. At that moment, a white-robed figure easily passed by the sages. The sages stared at that figure in disbelief. How can he walk so easily when we're all being suppressed to this state? D***, who's the real sage here? Oh my god! That white-robed figure was Chu Kwangren. He had been studying the Emperor's scripture for years, so his resistance to the Emperor's aura was much higher than the sages. Moreover, he had learned several Emperor techniques that contained Emperor's aura. All of these made it extremely easy for him to pass through the Emperor's aura. Soon he was far ahead of the sages. Who the hell is this guy? Eversodden sage and the other Outer Seas sages were dumbfounded. Chapter 327. Chu Kwangren walked towards the cottage step by step. His pace was not fast, but it was unusually steady. On the other hand, the other sages had to use all their strength to barely move a step or two. This won't do. If this goes on, the things in this cottage will be taken away by this guy. Eversodden sage thought. He took a deep breath and took out a jade pendant. That jade pendant was crystal clear, and contained an Emperor's aura. Everyone was shocked. An Emperor weapon? No, it's not an Emperor weapon. It's probably something that an Emperor used to wear when he was alive. That's why it has such an aura. I can't believe Eversodden sage has such a treasure on him. Everyone could not help but be surprised. After Eversodden sage took out that jade pendant, the Emperor's aura on it and the cottage's Emperor's aura resisted each other, allowing him to catch up to Chu Kwangren in no time. Meanwhile, the others began to use all kinds of trump cards. Some used secret techniques to activate their Taoist rhymes, some used sage weapons to increase their strength, and some unleashed their sage technique Taoist rhymes. However, no matter what trump card they used, it was no match for the jade pendant in Eversodden sage's hand. That jade pendant alone was enough to match all the trump cards of the sages. The Emperor's aura could only be resisted with the Emperor's aura. That was the most effective method. The Emperor suppresses all techniques. All other techniques would be suppressed by the Emperor's aura. Soon, Eversodden sage and Chu Kwangren were walking side by side. The distance between the two of them and the cottage was less than 400 feet. Fellow Taoist, your strength is amazing, but this is the 36 Oceanic Islands territory. The treasures in this cottage are ours. Eversodden sage said confidently. Chu Kwangren glanced at him, but did not say anything. Crack. At that moment, a crisp sound was heard. Cracks appeared on the jade pendant in Eversodden sage's hand. The Emperor's aura on it was about to be depleted. A series of crisp cracking sounds were heard. And with the last crack, the jade pendant in Eversodden sage's hand turned into dust. The dust was blown away by the wind. What? Eversodden sage's expression changed. Then the Emperor's aura, which had lost its resistance from the jade pendant, landed on Eversodden sage and almost crushed him to the ground. Damn it! The ever-sodden sage bent his knees and circulated all the strength in his body to resist the powerful emperor's aura around him. Heh, you'd better straighten your back first. Chu Kuangren smiled. He straightened his back and slowly walked towards the thatched cottage. Damn brat. Being mocked by Chu Kuangren, ever-sodden sage was enraged. He wanted to catch up to Chu Kuangren, but to no avail. He took out a broken blade. A terrifying emperor's aura emanated from the broken blade. That's a sovereign weapon, a broken sovereign weapon. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. He had never thought that the Everwater Saint would have such a thing. Adding on the jade pendant that contained the emperor's aura, Zhao Fu had never expected the Everwater Saint to have such a thing. It seemed like this ever-sodden sage's fortuitous encounter was not shallow. The things in this thatched cottage can only be mine. Ever-sodden sage held the broken saber in his hand and activated the emperor's aura on it. Soon he caught up to Chu Kuangren. At this moment, the two of them were less than 200 feet away from the thatched cottage, leaving the other sages far behind. The things in here can only be mine. Ever-sodden sage overtook Chu Kuangren and quickly walked towards the thatched cottage. 100 feet, 100 feet, 170 feet, 160 feet. When there was less than 100 feet left, ever-sodden sage's footsteps slowed down again. Every step he took was extremely difficult. Chu Kuangren, who was behind him, also noticed that the emperor's aura within the last 100 feet of the thatched cottage had increased by more than a level. Chu Kuangren also felt the pressure. Was he going to give up just like that? No. Impossible. The 6 supreme foundation levels within Chu Kuangren's spiritual mound shone brightly as he activated his 3 supreme Taoist physiques to resist the aura. Seeing Chu Kuangren surrounded by various Taoist rhymes, the sages behind him were dumbfounded. They were in disbelief. F***ck me so many Taoist physiques. How did this guy do it? 3 supreme Taoist physiques? By the heavens! How can such a person exist in this world? How can the 4 domains have someone like that? The sages were extremely shocked. At that moment, Chu Kuangren was already within 100 feet of the thatched cottage. He stood next to ever-sodden sage, who was wielding his broken saber. He could also feel the terrifying emperor's aura. No wonder ever-sodden sage, who had a broken emperor weapon, was having such a hard time. The emperor's aura here was indeed terrifying. Chu Kuangren had already given it his all, but it was still incredibly taxing. Just as he was about to activate the 9 deaths blazing blood art, the Eternal Emperor Scripture and Mindful Emperor Scripture in his Yin and Yang ring seemed to have sensed something and released 2 surges of Emperor's aura at the same time, as if they were stimulated by the Emperor's aura in the thatched cottage. The aura released by the 2 Emperor's Scriptures was much stronger than when Chu Kuangren was comprehending it. These 2 surges of Emperor's aura surrounded Chu Kuangren, blocking out the Emperor's aura from the thatched cottage. I didn't expect this. Chu Kuangren smirked and walked towards the thatched cottage. It was as if he was taking a stroll in the park. He was extremely relaxed and faster than when he first started. Ever-sodden sage, who had given it his all, was dumbfounded. He could not believe what he was seeing. What's going on? How can he walk so easily? What method did he use? Ever-sodden sage aside, all the sages at the scene, including the sages of the 4 domains who thought they were familiar with Chu Kuangren's abilities, could not help but be shocked. The last 10 feet should be the place where the Emperor's aura was the densest and most difficult to pass. How could Chu Kuangren walk so easily? Soon, Chu Kuangren arrived at the door of the thatched cottage. No, don't. The things in there are mine. You can't take them. Ever-sodden sage yelled from behind Chu Kuangren. With all his might, he took 2 steps forward, but he was still 7 or 8 feet away from Chu Kuangren. In his panic, he even channeled his spiritual power and unleashed a palm attack. However, before his palm chi could even get close to Chu Kuangren, it was disintegrated by the Emperor's aura. It could not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. Heh, take your time. I'll go in and have a look. Chu Kuangren smiled nonchalantly and pushed open the thatched cottage's wooden door. He walked in and saw that it was no different from an ordinary thatched cottage. The only difference was that there was a man sitting cross-legged on the bed. It was a tall, white-haired, Handsome man with mysterious Taoist rhymes circulating around his body. Even though he was sitting there without moving, he still gave off an extremely oppressive aura. However, what caught Chu Kuangren's attention was not the white-haired man, but the head in front of the white-haired man. It was a woman's head. Her facial features were so beautiful that they looked like they were carved from jade. That head lay quietly on the bed. The emperor's aura that filled the thatched cottage, and even the entire island was emanating from that head. That was right. It was not the complete white-haired man, but the woman who only had a head. What kind of existence was this woman when she was alive? Chu Kuangren could not help but wonder. Chapter 328. What kind of existence was this lady when she was alive? Chu Kuangren could not help but wonder. Just her head alone could release an emperor's aura that enveloped the entire island, making it difficult for sages to approach her. What kind of existence was she when she was alive? Chu Kuangren activated his eye of revelation. When his gaze landed on the lady's head, only a small amount of information emerged. Great Emperor's head. Name unknown. Cultivation unknown. Currently in a living dead state. Host, please be careful. What? A living dead state? What was going on? Her head was chopped off, but her body was nowhere to be seen. Was she in a living dead state? However, when Chu Kuangren thought about it, he had the immortal body. Even if his head was blown off, he could still come back to life. When he thought about it, he felt like he was more powerful than this lady. At that thought, Chu Kuangren felt relieved. He then looked at the white-haired man beside him. Heavenly Battle Sage Ruler, Boundary Emperor Realm Cultivation, dead. It was a Boundary Emperor. Although a Boundary Emperor was still within the realm of a Sage Ruler, the difference between an Honorable Supreme and a Boundary Sage was like the difference between clouds and mud. It was the most powerful person below an Emperor, so Chu Kuangren did not know how he died here. Chu Kuangren continued to channel his spiritual power into his eye of revelation to analyze the other party. Preserved Taoist rhyme is 40% complete. Time of death is around 70,000 years. Cause of death is suspected to have gone berserk. After a round of analysis, Chu Kuangren did not immediately touch the 1.5 corpses. Instead, he began to scan the entire cottage. Soon, he discovered that there were a few other items on the table in the thatched cottage. They were a wooden box, a booklet, and a broken bronze mirror. Chu Kuangren walked up and picked up the booklet. When he flipped it open, a strange look flashed across his eyes. A diary? That booklet was a diary. I know it's not nice to read someone else's diary, but since you're already dead, you shouldn't mind, right? Chu Kuangren glanced at the white-haired man before he began to flip through the diary. Today I've failed again. I'm already a Boundary Emperor, but I still can't break through that last barrier. Is it true that no one can become an emperor during this era of Dharma's end? This lady must have been an extremely powerful being when she was alive. Just her head alone has such a terrifying emperor's aura. This is a great opportunity of fortune, and I can see the hope of becoming an emperor. Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. This woman was still alive. She's releasing some kind of fluctuation, as if she's sending some kind of signal. She came, that woman came. She didn't have a head, so she came to me for her head. But I couldn't give it to her. This is my hope of becoming an emperor. I fought with her, and perhaps because she didn't have a head, she couldn't display the battle prowess of an emperor. I paid the price of my emperor armament, the green origin mirror, and luckily escaped. Today, I went overseas and found an island. I set up layers of barriers and escaped into the void to isolate myself from the headless woman's senses. I hope that the next time we meet, I can make a breakthrough. At that time, I will definitely return this head to her. Many precious herbs have been growing on the island recently. It's all because of that woman's brain. The Emperor realm is truly too mysterious. Today, I'm going into death seclusion. This time, if I don't succeed, I'll die trying. I refuse to believe that no one will become an emperor in the end of days. In the end of days, no one had become an emperor. The diary ended abruptly at this point. The result was predictable. The heavenly battle sage ruler failed to ascend to the emperor realm and died from chi deviation. However, Chu Kuangren was horrified when he finished reading the diary. The owner of this head, a headless woman, was looking for it. F***CK, I feel like I'm watching a horror movie. Chu Kuangren shuddered. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. This island was hidden in the void before, and there were layers of barriers set up around it to isolate the headless woman's senses. So now, D***MN. Chu Kuangren's expression changed slightly. The island had once again appeared on the sea, and he did not sense any energy reaction from the surroundings. Did that mean that the barriers had failed? If that was the case, the headless woman would most likely sense the head again, and come looking for it. After all, that was an existence that even a boundary emperor could not handle. How could a small body like Chu Kuangren stand a chance against it? No, I have to think of something. Chu Kuangren was secretly anxious. Suddenly his eyes lit up. He opened his inventory and took out a talisman. This is a starlight grade talisman, a sealing talisman. It can be used to seal all abnormal things. I wonder if it'll work. He had obtained this sealing talisman from the Gacha roll. Initially he did not know what it was used for, but now he might be able to give it a try. He walked forward and was about to place the talisman on the head. However, he stopped and turned around to put the diary, bronze mirror, and the unknown wooden box into his yin and yang ring. He also threw the boundary emperor's corpse into the ring. After that, he carefully stepped forward and placed the talisman on the woman's head. When his finger touched the woman's forehead, he felt a warm sensation. It felt like a living person to the touch. After the talisman was placed, the head began to tremble. Chu Kuangren could clearly see a struggling expression on the expressionless head, which scared him so much that he almost pulled out his descendant self-sword. However, after a while, the head regained its calm and became expressionless again. The surrounding emperor's aura also instantly dissipated. I did it. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he kept the head into his yin and yang ring. In the outside world, the moment the emperor's aura disappeared, the sages were stunned for a moment before their expressions changed. The emperor's aura disappeared. It must be that kid. What did he do? Quick, let's go in and have a look. Eversodden sage, who was at the forefront, rushed into the cottage. Chu Kuangren had already stored everything of value in the cottage, including the woman's head, into his yin and yang ring. Looking at the empty cottage, Eversodden sage's expression turned grim. Kid, hand over the treasures now. Otherwise, I'll make sure you never leave this island. Chu Kuangren smiled. Oh, are you threatening me? So what if I am? Heh, you can come and try then. Chu Kuangren was not afraid anymore. It was just a great sage. It was not like he had never fought against one before. Don't blame me then. Sky Ripple Palm. Eversodden sage raised his arm and unleashed a palm attack. The violent palm chi contained a surge of Taoist rhyme erupted like a tsunami. Because of this palm, circles of ripples appeared in the void. Chu Kuangren also unleashed a palm attack. The majestic human mountain energy erupted. The impact from the collision of the two surges of Taoist rhyme instantly destroyed the cottage that was no longer protected by the emperor's aura. The sages outside the cottage were also forced to take a few steps back. They're fighting. So it's that kid who took the treasures. This is the outer seas. It won't be that easy to take the treasures away. Does he really think Eversodden sage will let him go? Chapter 329. The two palms collided and a violent shockwave swept out. Chu Kuangren and the Eversodden sage were both forced to retreat. Meanwhile, the outer seas sages also rushed forward and surrounded Chu Kuangren. Kid, hand over the treasure and I'll spare your life. That's right. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave this island. The outer seas sages glared at Chu Kuangren. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren simply said, Then I'd like to see how you guys are going to make me unable to walk out of this place. As soon as he finished speaking, he placed the zither in front of his chest. His 10 fingers pressed on the zither strings, ready to strike. Meanwhile, when the sages from the 4 domains saw Chu Kuangren take out his guqin, their expressions changed slightly, and they quickly retreated. They looked at the sages from the endless seas with pity in their eyes. These guys didn't know what kind of lunatic they were going to face. Zither Dao? No matter how strong your zither music is, do you think you can defeat more than 30 sages here? One of the sages sneered before his figure moved and charged towards Chu Kuangren. A terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme instantly erupted. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren plucked the guqin strings with his fingers, and a loud clang was heard. Third movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Great Yellow Bell Lu. The terrifying sound of the zither erupted. The sage's Taoist rhyme was torn apart in an instant, and the incomparably violent power sent the sage flying. After flying for hundreds of feet, he smashed onto the ground. His muscles and bones were all broken, and he was no longer breathing. This scene caused everyone present to be shocked. A sage had actually been killed by the sound of a zither. What kind of terrifying zither Dao was this? What the hell is going on with this guy's cultivation? Isn't he a venerable? The overseas sages were extremely fearful. It had always been supremacies who were killed by saints. Since when had a supremacy ever killed a saint? This simply made their worldview collapse. Come everyone please. Chu Kuangren plucked the bowstring and gestured to the crowd with a prideful look on his face. Coupled with the fact that he had killed a sage in an instant, no one dared to act rashly. Seeing this, Ever-Sodden Sage made the first move. He was a great sage, so he had the ability to do so. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren immediately activated the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art. The aura on his body skyrocketed, and all 10 of his fingers swiftly plucked at the strings of the guqin. Swallowing 10,000 miles. Raging waves beating the shore. The 5th and 6th movements of the 8 celestial and demonic chords were performed simultaneously. The incomparably violent guqin music attacked Ever-Sodden Sage, clashing with the Taoist rhymes on his body, causing the surrounding void to rumble. The rest of the sages were shocked by this terrifying power. No one dared to go forward. They even retreated, afraid that they would be affected. Too powerful. Where did this guy come from? Putting aside the zither Dao that he uses, why is that blood-colored flame on his body somewhat similar to the legendary 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art? What kind of joke is this? Isn't the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood technique a taboo suicide technique for sages? How dare he use it? Not to mention the overseas saints, even the saints of the 4 regions were secretly speechless. Naturally, they knew that Chu Kuangren knew the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art, but they did not expect him to use it as an ordinary technique. It's a forbidden technique, yet he can use it at will. Could it be that he has a way to resist the side effects of this technique? That's impossible. Even after so many years of research, no one has been able to make up for this flaw. Otherwise, why would it be classified as taboo? Just because the previous sages couldn't do it doesn't mean that Chu Kuangren can't. Don't forget, this guy can't be measured with common sense. Upon hearing that, the sages fell silent. They had seen too much of Chu Kuangren's terrifying abilities in the past few years. Chu Kuangren had done many things that everyone thought were impossible. So even if he had a way to resist the side effects of the 9 Deaths Blazing Blood art, it did not seem that difficult to accept. Torrential waves. Honorable Ever-Sodden suddenly let out a loud roar, and a horrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from his body. The sound of splashing water could be heard in the void. That surge of Taoist rhyme carried an extremely chilling energy that intertwined with the guqin music. For a moment, it overpowered the guqin music. Oh, this is some kind of sage ruler technique. Coupled with the fact that this person's cultivation level has reached the great sage standard, it's no wonder that he can unleash such combat strength. Chu Kuangren was surprised. Although he had a bunch of sage ruler techniques and emperor techniques, he knew that sage ruler techniques were extremely rare. Most sages only used ordinary sage techniques. Faced with Honorable Ever-Sodden's Taoist rhyme attack, Chu Kuangren suddenly changed his tune and unleashed an even more powerful guqin music Taoist rhyme. In an instant, the clouds in the sky surged, and thunder rumbled. Even the ground was affected as earth chi surged, and the ground trembled. It was as if the heavens and the earth were accompanying this guqin music. 7th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Heavenly and Earthly Reverberation. The horrifying guqin music erupted, wave after wave, from the heavens and the earth, gushing towards Ever-Sodden Sage from all directions. That power was just too shocking. Even Ever-Sodden Sage could not help but be shocked. He frantically channeled his Taoist rhyme to resist the Guqin music Taoist rhyme. The splashing sound of water and the majestic Guqin music collided. Gradually, the sound of water faded away, but the Guqin music grew louder. D****. Myriad rivers converge. Ever-sodden sage let out a long roar, and channeled the spiritual power in his body to its limit. He even took out the broken saber that he used to resist the Emperor's aura, and used its Emperor's aura to strengthen his own cultivation technique. In an instant, it was as if thousands of streams in the sky converged towards ever-sodden sage, forming an extremely majestic and terrifying Taoist rhyme that was as vast as the boundless ocean. It then surged towards Chu Kuangren. The Guqin music was forcefully broken at that moment. Go to hell, kid. That attack was Ever-Sodden Sage's strongest attack. It was so powerful that even the void was distorted. It was as if an ocean had really converged on Ever-Sodden Sage's body, and smashed towards Chu Kuangren. This B***starred as dead meat. The Outer Seas sages stared at that scene. In their opinion, Chu Kuangren would not be able to withstand that attack. Not many people in the entire 36 oceanic islands could. Under the watchful eyes of the sages, Chu Kuangren plucked the Guqin strings with his fingers, and the Guqin music between the heavens and earth stopped abruptly. However, there was an earth-shattering, indescribable Taoist rhyme that gathered on Chu Kuangren's body and the Guqin strings at his fingertips. Final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords. Grand melodic soundless. Chu Kuangren suddenly let go of the Guqin strings, but there was no sound. However, a terrifying Guqin music Taoist rhyme had already erupted. The great Tao was shapeless, and the grand melodic soundless. This was the highest realm of Guqin Tao. It was not that there was no sound, but the sound had already merged with the Taoist Tao. It could not be heard, nor could it be touched. No one knew where it came from, and no one knew when it disappeared. Silence was better than sound. The moment Chu Kuangren let go of the Guqin strings, Ever-Sodden Sage suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. The Guqin music Taoist rhyme rushed towards him. It was majestic and silent, yet it easily destroyed his Taoist rhyme. In an instant, Ever-Sodden Sage's Taoist rhyme was dispersed, and his entire body was struck by the Guqin music Taoist rhyme. Even with his great sage body, his bones, flesh, and blood were instantly shattered, and he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Chapter 330. The great voice of desolation instantly shattered Ever-Sodden Sage's Taoist rhyme. He slowly walked in front of Ever-Sodden Sage, and before anyone could react, he unsheathed his sword and killed him. This scene shocked all the overseas sages present. That was a great sage. How could he kill him just like that? This level of strength was simply too terrifying. Chu Kuangren stood where he was with a sword in one hand and a Guqin in the other. He said calmly, "Excuse me, is there anyone else who wants my treasures?" He asked very politely, but no one dared to say anything. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren as if they were looking at an evil Azura. Chu Kuangren was a person who could kill even a great sage. There was probably not a single person present who could stand a chance against him. Whether they could kill Chu Kuangren was still a question, but they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, the sages of the 4 domains were present as well. For a moment, none of the saints from the outer seas dared to move. Then I'll be taking the treasure. With a chuckle, Chu Kuangren lifted his arm and unleashed a terrifying suction force that sucked the Ever-Sodden Sage into the avarice dimension. Over the past few days he had encountered a lot of sages and killed quite a few of them. Now with the addition of a great sage he had refined so much flesh and blood essence. There were already signs of a breakthrough in his cultivation. One more step and he would be a supreme paragon. 3rd Patriarch, 2nd Patriarch, can we go now? Chu Kuangren asked the 2 forefathers of Black Heaven sect. The 2 nodded. Then, the 3 of them left. The rest of the sages looked at each other. There was nothing valuable left here, so they might as well go to other places to take a look. The sages continued to explore the island. Chu Kuangren and the other 2 had also scavenged the island. With the treasure locating skill at his disposal, his efficiency in scavenging treasures was much higher than the other sages. Black Heaven's 3rd and 2nd forefathers were left speechless by his side. They felt as if Chu Kuangren was strolling in his own backyard, knowing exactly where the treasures were hidden. Chu Kuangren had already gotten his hands on a whole bunch of sage-grade herbs while the others had gone through so much trouble to find a single sage-grade herb. There was no way they could compare. Coupled with the emperor-grade treasures in the cottage, Chu Kuangren could easily claim that he had taken 70 to 80% of the most valuable treasures on this unnamed island. It's about time to leave, Chu Kuangren said. Third forefather and second forefather nodded. At this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. Suddenly many celestial boats appeared in the sky. Not only in the sky, but also on the surface of the sea, a group of strange-looking people appeared. Some parts of these people's bodies were more or less covered in scales. There were so many of them that it was impossible to count them all. In a short period of time, the entire nameless island was surrounded. These are the scaled tribe. Chu Kuangren frowned slightly. He had heard of a tribe that lived in the ocean called the scaled tribe. They were the rulers of the ocean. That's right, it's the scaled tribe. Why are they here? Second forefather of Black Heaven frowned. I am the scaled tribe's young master, Bei Mingsan. I would like to invite the Black Heaven sect leader, Chu Kuangren, to show himself. At that moment, a voice came from the sky. In the air, a young man with black hair that reached his shoulders was holding a silver trident. His body was surging with extremely thick Taoist rhymes. What caught people's attention was that apart from a few golden scales on his forehead, this black-haired youth was no different from an ordinary person. In the scaled tribe, talent was determined by the number of scales one had. The fewer the scales one had, the better their talent was. It was obvious that this black-haired youth's talent was extraordinary. Young lad, do you have any grudges with the scaled tribe? Black Heaven's second forefather asked curiously. Chu Kuangren smiled helplessly. This is my first time meeting someone from the scaled tribe. What grudges could there be? If that's the case, then he must be here for the emperor-grade treasure in your hands, third forefather said solemnly. Let me meet him first. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Then his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Bei Mingsan. Looking at him, he activated his Eye of Revelation and quickly analyzed his opponent's information. Bei Mingsan, the scaled tribe's young master, an ancient sky pride from 70,000 years ago with an honorable supreme cultivation base. He cultivates the scaled tribe's incomplete northern dark black water technique. His combat strength is comparable to a sage's. An incomplete emperor's scripture. Moreover, it was an emperor's scripture that cultivated the foundation. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. Emperor's scriptures that cultivated the foundation were very rare. Even the two emperor's scriptures that Chu Kuangren possessed did not have such a technique. What he had were emperor's insights and emperor techniques. This Bei Mingsan in front of him had an emperor's scripture that cultivated the foundation. Although it was incomplete, it was still many times better than a sage ruler technique. At the very least, his heavenly crescent myrtle sword art could not compare. After all, that cultivation technique was originally just an ordinary sage technique. Although he had improved it many times, and it had reached the level of a sage ruler technique, it was still far from being comparable to an emperor's scripture. Could it be that I've met a sky pride that's on par with me this time? Chu Kuangren thought about it, and felt a little excited. You're Chu Kuangren? The scaled tribe's young master, Bei Mingsan, asked. Suddenly, the trident in his hand trembled. Although it was only for a moment, he still noticed it. A look of contemplation flashed across his eyes. Yes. Let me ask you, do you have a halberd with you? Or is the treasure that you obtained in the cottage a halberd? Bei Mingsan's eyes lit up. The movement of the trident reminded him of something, and he could not help but feel a little excited. His purpose of coming here was to obtain the emperor-grade treasures from this island. Now, it seemed that he had an unexpected gain. I don't need to tell you that. How about this, let's have a duel. If you lose, you'll give me the treasures that you obtained in the cottage. What do you think? What if you lose? That's impossible, Bei Mingsan said proudly. Ever since I've appeared in this world, I've never lost. Other than me, even the strongest sky pride in the scaled tribe can't take more than 3 moves from me. You're no match for me either. With the trident in his hand, Beiming-san's aura surged as Taoist rhymes surrounded him like crashing waves that slammed into the void. Don't be too confident. How about this? If you lose, I don't want anything else. I just want the trident in your hand. What do you think? Chu Kuangren could tell that the trident was extraordinary at first glance. It was surrounded by an aura that was very close to an emperor's aura. It was a boundary emperor weapon. Not only that, but when Chu Kuangren saw the boundary emperor weapon, he could feel the heavens halberd in his yin and yang ring move a little. Coupled with Beiming-san's question about whether he had a halberd with him, it was obvious that there was a connection between the two. Do you know what this trident is? Beiming-san's expression darkened. What is it? This is the Scaled Tribe's most precious treasure, and it's also the symbol of the Scaled Tribe's young master. Do you think you can afford it? The Taoist rhyme on his body intensified and surged towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, stood still. That extremely violent Taoist rhyme was like a gentle breeze to him. It did not affect him at all. Then do you know how much more valuable the treasures I obtained in the cottage is compared to the trident in your hand? Do you think you can afford it? Chu Kuangren said coldly. Everything else aside, that boundary emperor's body alone was worth almost as much as the trident. Not to mention the terrifying great empress head. Are you going to fight or not? Just tell me. What kind of man are you to be so wishy-washy? Chu Kuangren snorted, which made Beiming-san's expression turn even darker. All right, I'll let you. Chapter 331. All right, I'll grant you your wish. After being provoked by Chu Kuangren, the prideful Beiming-san no longer hesitated and agreed. He did not think that he would lose. His long history of victories had given him great confidence. Moreover, the trident in his hand was a quasi-emperor weapon. With his strength and this quasi-emperor weapon, even a great sage expert would have to retreat in front of him. He felt that Chu Kuangren would not be able to defeat him. In fact, it was not just Beiming-san who felt that way. Every Scaled Tribe member thought that Chu Kuangren would not be able to defeat Beiming-san. Our young master's strength is earth-shattering. With the trident weapon, even a sage would have to face him. How can Chu Kuangren compare? That's right. He's just waiting to lose. This person is considered a peerless sky pride on the land. He has reached the honorable realm at such a young age, and rumor has it that he's on par with a sage. It's a shame that he has encountered our young master. He's destined to lose. The Scaled Tribe members discussed among themselves. The sages on the island were curious as well. They were well aware of Chu Kuangren's combat strength, but Beiming-san's strength was not to be underestimated either. With a boundary emperor weapon, could his strength really be on par with Chu Kuangren's? Bring it on! Beiming-san waved his trident weapon, and a terrifying surge of water-based Taoist rhyme erupted, turning into a terrifying torrent that surged towards Chu Kuangren. That attack alone was no weaker than a sage's attack. Chu Kuangren did not use any weapons. He simply raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. The incomparably violent human mountain stamp exploded in an instant, and a terrifying force crushed out like a divine mountain, shattering the torrent. Beiming-san's eyes lit up. Great! You're indeed the strongest sky pride on the land. It seems that I've met my match today. He looked a little excited as he gripped his trident tightly and charged towards Chu Kuangren. As the trident danced in the air, a monstrous torrent of energy erupted, and the sound of tsunami-like water continued to resound in the void. Chu Kuangren unsheathed the descendant self-sword at his waist. The moment he unsheathed it, an extremely cold surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme instantly tore Beiming-san's Taoist rhyme apart, and forced him to retreat 100 meters. Then, a majestic sword chi erupted. With a slash, a majestic purple sword ray with a Taoist rhyme that seemed capable of tearing the heavens apart blasted towards Beiming-san. Black water billows. Beiming-san shouted and activated his ultimate technique. This was a saint ruler technique that was close to an emperor technique. With the support of the trident in his hand, its power was almost on par with an emperor technique. The trident shot out and the two forces collided with each other in the air. An incomparably majestic force surged out in an instant, crazily beating the void like a tidal wave, washing away everything. Under the impact of this force, Bei Mingsang was blasted back dozens of feet. The trident in his hand buzzed from the backlash, and he almost lost his grip on it. This person actually has such terrifying strength. Bei Mingsang couldn't believe it. Whenever he battled against Sky Prides, it was always him who crushed them. Yet now he was at a disadvantage against Chu Kuangren. He had never encountered such a thing before. So this is your strength? How disappointing. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Comparable to a great sage? In Chu Kuangren's opinion, Bei Mingsang could at most exchange blows with a great sage, but it was impossible for him to defeat him. But he was different. He was someone who could even kill great saints. Again. Bei Mingsang roared angrily. He waved the trident in his hand, channeling his Taoist rhymes and spiritual power to the extreme, interweaving into a black ocean in the void. The ocean was turbulent, and waves rose one after another. A vast and boundless force shrouded Chu Kuangren. It was a dominating force. If an ordinary sage were to face such an attack, they would not even be able to block it for a second. Unfortunately, Chu Kuangren was fighting Bei Mingsang, and his combat strength was much stronger than an ordinary sage's. Lose! Bei Mingsang roared and swung the trident in his hand. A surge of energy instantly erupted. The boundless ocean surged towards Chu Kuangren. This attack is quite interesting. But it's not enough. Chu Kuangren smiled, and a blood-colored flame suddenly appeared on his body. He had activated the 9 Deaths blazing blood art. With the Descendant Self sword in his hand, he suddenly swung his sword. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. The sword slashed out, and the sword light was incomparably magnificent. The boundless ocean was torn in half by the sword ray. The ocean was split in half by the sword ray. What? Bei Mingsang's pupils shrank, and his face was filled with shock. The sword ray was like a hot knife through butter as it swept towards him. Block it! Bei Mingsang roared and swung the trident in his hand. The sword ray collided with the trident, and an earth-shattering clanging sound erupted. The sound waves continued to spread. Unable to withstand the force, Bei Mingsang spat out a mouthful of blood, and was sent flying. The trident in his hand was also shaken. Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light, and dashed towards the trident, grabbing it in his hand. Just as he succeeded, an extremely cold aura came from behind him, and a palm tree shrouded in frost blasted towards him. Humph! With a soft grunt, Chu Kuangren retaliated with a backhand palm. A golden Buddhist light erupted. Giant palm of exorcism. The golden palm collided with the frost palm chi, and the frost mixed with the golden Buddhist light shot out, sweeping the surroundings. Chu Kuangren was forced back a few feet, and he had a good look at the person who ambushed him. It was a white-haired old man. This old man's face was covered with a layer of scales, and he was obviously a sage of the scaled tribe. He was staring at Chu Kuangren coldly. Kid, hand over the trident. Chu Kuangren held the trident, spun it around twice, and then put it into his yin and yang ring under the old man's furious gaze. Since he lost the bet, this trident will naturally be mine. Don't you think the scaled tribe is so untrustworthy? The scaled tribe can use other things to trade with you, be it soul stones or treasures from the sea, but not this item. I'm sorry, but this is all I want. Chu Kuangren said calmly. If that's the case, don't even think about leaving this island today. The scaled tribe's sage said with a grim look. Behind him, the group of scaled tribe members were closing in on Chu Kuangren as well, surrounding him in layers and layers. Even a sage was a little intimidated by their terrifying aura. There were too many scaled tribe members, and they were in the middle of the ocean, which was the scaled tribe's territory. The situation was very disadvantageous for Chu Kuangren. If the scaled tribe is prepared to fight me to the death, then come at me. A guqin appeared before Chu Kuangren. The sages could not help but shiver at the sight of that guqin. They knew that if Chu Kuangren were to play the guqin, the 8 celestial demonic chords would definitely kill off half of the scaled tribe members. Guqin music was originally suitable for wide area attacks. Boom. At that moment, a terrifying wave of energy suddenly came from behind the scaled tribe, followed by a series of screams. What is this thing? Quick, kill her. Everyone looked over. A figure had suddenly appeared behind the scaled tribe. It was a headless body. It walked among the countless scaled tribe members, as if it was in a deserted place. Wherever it went, the scaled tribe members would turn into dried corpses as if their life force had been sucked out of them. Everyone, including the sages, gasped when they saw that headless body. Chu Kuangren could not help but be shocked. She's here. Chapter 332. She's here. Chu Kuangren could not help but be shocked when he saw the headless lady of the scaled tribe. His head had still attracted the headless lady here. Even though he had already sealed the head with a sealing talisman, the headless woman had still sensed the previous fluctuations. D***, what kind of monster is this? Why can't we kill her? How can she move without a head? What's going on? Our life essence is being sucked away by her. Quick, we need to kill this monster as soon as possible. The scaled tribe continued to attack the headless lady. However, no matter what they did, any energy that got close to the headless lady would be instantly disintegrated. They could not hurt her at all. It was the same for the scaled tribe sage. Oceanic overturning palm. One of the scaled tribe sages roared and leaped towards the headless lady. He then channeled all of his spiritual power and unleashed a palm attack. A violent surge of palm chi poured out with a force that could overturn rivers and seas. However, when that surge of energy approached the headless lady did not use any powerful cultivation techniques. All she did was gently lift her hand, and the sage's Taoist rhyme was instantly shattered. Then, the headless lady's figure flashed and disappeared from where she was. When she reappeared, she was holding the head of the scaled tribe sage who had attacked her. That scene shocked everyone. No one saw clearly how she killed the saint. All they saw was the headless lady taking the scaled tribe sage's head away, and a huge amount of blood gushed out from his neck. Then, the sage fell to the ground with a loud thud. The headless lady held the head in her hand and pressed it against her own neck, as if she was trying to reattach it. However, since it was not her own head, she could not reattach it no matter how hard she tried. In the end, as if enraged, she smashed the sage's head onto the ground, smashing it into a pulp. TSK, what a hot-tempered one. Chu Kuangren clicked his tongue not far away. It seemed that due to the sealing talisman, the headless lady could not sense that her head was with Chu Kuangren for the time being. She could only follow her instincts to this island. The best thing to do now was to escape as soon as possible. After all, he was no match for the headless woman. The headless woman. That's one of the 7 great ghost stories, the headless woman. I thought it was just some groundless rumor, but it turns out to be true. The headless woman really exists. A sage gulped and said. It was too terrifying. The headless woman killed sages as if they were dogs. It was as easy as blowing off dust. But why did the headless woman suddenly appear here? Who knows? Let's leave first. That's right. I don't want to die here. The group of sages fled in panic. The headless woman went on a killing spree among the scaled tribe. Wherever she went, a strange aura filled the air, and all the scaled tribe members were turned into dried corpses. Even a sage would not be able to withstand a single move from him. Swoosh, taking advantage of the chaos in the scaled tribe, Chu Kuangren went up to Black Heaven's second and third forefathers and took out a talisman. Second patriarch, third patriarch, grab me. Without suspecting anything, the 2 forefathers grabbed onto Chu Kuangren's shoulders. Chu Kuangren crushed the talisman, and in an instant, an invisible spatial energy enveloped the 3 of them. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them disappeared on the spot. On the island, the headless woman was still on a killing spree. The sages were either dead or had fled. They could not face such a terrifying attack head-on. The tens of millions of scaled tribe members were defeated and returned to the ocean. Soon enough, the headless woman was the only one left on the island. The headless woman continued to rummage through the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. Occasionally, she would pick up a head and place it on her own head, but she could not connect it. She was so infuriated that she unleashed a terrifying energy wave that shook the entire unnamed island. With the headless woman at the center, it began to crumble. Not long after, the entire island crumbled and sank to the bottom of the ocean. The headless woman stood in the void, emanating a terrifying emperor's aura. The entire ocean surged violently because of her emperor's aura, causing countless sea creatures to tremble in fear. Some of the ordinary living beings did not sense anything, but those with higher cultivation levels could sense how terrifying the headless woman was. This was especially true for the sages, who almost fell to the ground and trembled in fear. In the depths of the ocean, 2 balls of yellow light suddenly appeared in the dark trench. Upon closer inspection, they were actually a pair of giant eyes. How can such an existence exist on Firmament Star? I'm afraid this woman was not an ordinary emperor when she was alive. Even in that place, she would be one of the best. A series of murmurs echoed in the ocean before everything returned to normal. On the unnamed island, after the headless woman had vented her anger, she reached out and grabbed at the void, tearing a pitch-black spatial rift. The woman walked into the rift and disappeared without a trace. What kind of existence is that? How can it be so terrifying? That's one of the 7 great strange stories in Firmament Star. I thought it was fake, but who knew that the headless woman really existed? The sages outside the island were still traumatized. It was at this moment that they realized that the high and mighty sages could one day be like ants in front of other existences. There were too many mysteries and unknowns in this world. Even the sages could not know everything. At that moment, Chu Kuangren had already left the unnamed island with the Black Heaven's 2nd and 3rd forefathers using the Great Shift Talisman, and arrived at a mountain range hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. We should be safe now. Chu Kuangren looked around. Kid, you have quite a few tricks up your sleeve. The Black Heaven's 2nd and 3rd forefathers were amazed. Even a sage who was proficient in spatial Dao might not be able to teleport hundreds of thousands of kilometers in an instant. I obtained this talisman by chance, but it can only be used once. Chu Kuangren looked at the Great Shift Talisman that had turned into ashes in his hand, and shook his head. He did not feel that it was a waste. Ever since he got the lucky halo, he had obtained quite a number of good items in the past year or so, including some trump cards for escaping. The Great Shift Talisman was just one of them. Alright, let's return to the Black Heavens sect first. Chu Kuangren said. He took out the elusive mirage and returned to the Black Heavens sect. While he was back, the Firmament Star was not at peace. First, the appearance of the headless woman on the unnamed island had caused an uproar. All the sages were shocked when they heard the news. Second, the news that Chu Kuangren had obtained an emperor-grade treasure on the unnamed island had spread, and many people coveted the treasures that he had. Unfortunately, due to his powerful strength, no one dared to make a move on him. On the other hand, the scaled tribe that lived in the ocean was furious. The headless woman had killed several scaled tribe sages, and more than half of the tens of millions of scaled tribe members. What made the scaled tribe king tremble with anger was the fact that the Sea King's trident, the symbol of the scaled tribe's supreme authority, had been taken away by an outsider. No, I must get the trident back. Black Heaven sect, I must make them pay for this. A cold light shot out from the scaled tribe king's eyes. Chapter 333. Chu Kuangren and the 2 forefathers soon returned to the Black Heaven sect. Once the 2 forefathers returned, they immediately went back to their cottage in the depths of the Black Heaven sect, as if they did not care about the sect's affairs. They were more than happy to leave everything to Chu Kuangren. It's great that I'm retired. Why don't I just work for a few years and find an excuse to retire as well? Chu Kuangren thought to himself. On the surface, the Sage Orthodoxy's sect leaders usually retired after ascension, so it seemed like his own retirement was not far away. It was just ascension after all. It was not that difficult. As Chu Kuangren thought about it, he arrived at the Longevity Hall. Greetings, sect leader. Elder Ruyan bowed respectfully. Yo, Elder Ruyan seems to be in a good mood. Chu Kuangren saw the smile on Elder Ruyan's face. Elder Ruyan has been in a good mood for the past few days. Those who don't know better would think that she has found her Mr. Right. One of the elders beside her laughed. Chu Kuangren was quite surprised too. Was the 1,000-year-old virgin Ruyan about to have sex? Screw you, sect leader. These few days, the Daoist School of Dedication and the Thunder Falcon tribe have sent over their soul stones. However, Some of them have used some treasures as collateral. This is the bill. Elder Ruyan rolled her eyes before she took out a scroll and handed it to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren took it and looked at it. It's not bad. I'll leave this matter to you. Just do as you see fit. All right. I'll be in closed-door meditation for a few days to prepare to ascend to the Honorable Supreme Realm. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Sect leader. You're preparing to ascend to the Honorable Supreme Realm? Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded and sighed. The other Sage Orthodoxy's sect leaders are all Honorable Supremes, but I'm only an Honorable. If I don't break through to the Honorable Supreme Realm soon, I'll become a laughing stock. The elders could not help but sweat when they heard him say that. Sect leader, can we stop joking? You're an honorable, but you've killed many sages. Who in this world would dare to treat you as an ordinary honorable? Then wouldn't killing an honorable supreme be child's play for you? I can't take it anymore. I need to ascend to the Honorable Supreme Realm as soon as possible, so I can retire after ascension. Chu Kuangren said. The elders were getting anxious. Don't. Sect leader, we're not in a hurry to transcend the tribulation. I think it's good that you continue to be the sect leader. That's right. It's only been a few years and he's already in such a hurry to retire. The shortest tenure of the other sect leaders was also a few hundred years. They were more than happy to see Chu Kuangren become the sect leader. He had only been the sect leader for slightly more than a year, but he had already raised the Black Heaven sect's foundation and strength by more than a level. Everything else aside, just the spirit stones won from this championship alone was enough to cover the Black Heaven sect's expenses for decades. In a few more years, the Black Heaven sect would definitely be able to take off. You old fellows, it seems like you can't wait for me to sit in the position of sect master until the end. Don't worry, I won't retire so easily until there's no suitable successor. Chu Kuangren said helplessly. It seemed that he still had a long way to go before he retired. At the very least, he would have to wait for Nangong Huang and the others to grow to the point where they could shoulder the responsibility. No matter what, it would take at least a few decades or a century. After discussing with Elder Ruyan and the others for a while, Chu Kuangren then returned to the Towering Heaven Palace to go into closed-door meditation. Before he went into closed-door meditation, he first took out the few items that he had obtained from the unnamed island. Aside from the headless lady's head, there was also the white-haired man's corpse, a bronze mirror, and a wooden box. The bronze mirror was in a damaged state. It was originally an emperor weapon, but now, it could not even unleash the power of a boundary emperor weapon. This must be the emperor weapon mentioned in the diary, the green primordial mirror. It was destroyed by the headless lady. Chu Kuangren looked at the cracked bronze mirror in his hand, and could not help but be shocked. This was an emperor weapon, after all. To be able to destroy an emperor weapon to such an extent, the headless lady's strength was just too terrifying. Moreover, her head had been chopped off, so she could not unleash her full strength. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the headless lady was when she was alive. An emperor was indeed earth-shattering. After keeping the green primordial mirror, Chu Kuangren did not immediately refine it. Instead, he looked at the wooden box. When he was on the unnamed island, he was afraid that the headless lady would come looking for him, so he was in a hurry to leave. He opened the wooden box. Inside there was a scroll. A scroll. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up because the scroll in front of him was exactly the same as the one he found in the Sky Emperor Palace. He opened the scroll and saw that there was also an emperor technique inside. My luck is pretty good. I just found out about the existence of the 9 major scrolls from the Sky Emperor Palace, and now I've obtained one of them. I wonder what kind of emperor technique this is, Chu Kuangren thought. He did not immediately study it. Instead, he put it away. Let's wait until I become an honorable supreme first, Chu Kuangren thought. He took out some medicinal pills, which were prepared for his breakthrough. Besides that, he also had the sage-grade medicine he obtained from the unnamed island. Coupled with the few sage corpses in the Avarice dimension, he should be able to break through this time no matter how solid his foundation was. Even if it was not enough, he still had a boundary emperor's corpse. When he refined it, he would probably be able to ascend in one go. Time passed, and soon, 3 days had passed. On this day, a powerful aura erupted from the towering heaven palace that Chu Kuangren was in, and it quickly spread throughout the entire Black Heaven sect. The Black Heaven sect's sword mountain gently trembled, and let out a sword cry. Deep within the Black Heaven sect, the Black Heaven sect's second forefather and the others sensed it. This little guy has broken through to become an honorable supreme. He'll probably ascend to become a sage soon. When that time comes, we can't keep calling him little guy. Not bad. The sages were relieved. Meanwhile, inside the towering heaven palace, after Chu Kuangren had successfully broken through to become an honorable supreme, he then looked at the white-robed man's corpse with a thoughtful look. Looks like I won't need this boundary emperor's body for now. I'll keep it and use it when I break through to become a sage. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. The blood and flesh essences that could be refined from a boundary emperor's body were definitely terrifying. It could help him to form a powerful sage's foundation, but it was still a long way from becoming a supreme sage's foundation. Therefore, before that, Chu Kuangren had to accumulate as many resources as he could so that he could form a supreme sage's foundation in one go. It's a pity that the gluttonous devouring technique is only a sage ruler technique, so it can't refine an emperor's body. Otherwise, if I refined that lady's head, I might really be able to form a supreme sage's foundation in one go. Chu Kuangren murmured. Then he kept the white-haired man's corpse into his yin and yang ring. Then he took out 2 halberds. One was black while the other was silver. They were the Heaven's halberd, and the trident halberd that he obtained from the Scaled tribe's young master. When the 2 halberds stood side by side, the aura they emitted was somewhat similar, as if they were from the same origin. Could this boundary emperor weapon of the Lu kingdom be from the Scaled tribe? Chu Kuangren pondered. After that, he studied them for a while and did not find anything special about them, so he threw the 2 halberds back into his yin and yang ring. Finally, he began to study the emperor technique recorded on the scroll. Chapter 334. Compared to the heart-piercing finger scroll that Chu Kuangren studied in the Sky Emperor Palace, this scroll did not contain that strange evil energy. It seemed that this had something to do with the emperor technique recorded in the scroll. The heart-piercing finger was an emperor technique that targeted one's Taoist core. With its evil energy, it would affect both the user and the target. With the experience of studying the heart-piercing finger, Chu Kuangren's speed of studying the scroll was much faster this time. It only took him 6 hours. Comprehending an emperor technique in 6 hours? If word of this got out, it would be ridiculous. Even an emperor would not have such terrifying comprehension abilities. However, for Chu Kuangren, who possessed the meditational clarity of clarity and the transcendent coalescence Taoist physique, he managed to achieve the impossible. Raging God's Fist. This emperor technique was called the Raging God's Fist. This was a fist technique, an extremely terrifying fist technique. It focused on anger, and the more enraged the user was, the more terrifying the power of this emperor technique would be. After studying this emperor technique, Chu Kuangren felt a surge of anger in his heart. He wanted nothing more than to pick a fight with someone on the spot. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. With the rock-steady Taoist core, he quickly suppressed his anger. After studying the emperor technique, Chu Kuangren stretched his body. He then opened the fantasy roulette and began the day's gacha. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the Starlight Grade Water Aversion Pearl. Water Aversion Pearl? Chu Kuangren looked at the item's information. As the name suggested, it was a pearl that allowed its user to walk freely underwater, and was even immune to water attacks to a certain extent. This is a pretty good treasure. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He was quite satisfied with this gacha. Treasures with special functions like this might come in handy in the future, just like the restriction talisman. After breaking through to the Honorable Supreme, Chu Kuangren stayed in the Black Heaven sect for the rest of his time. He did not go out to stir up trouble. If he was not discussing the sect's internal affairs with Elder Ruyan and the others, he would look for the Fairfrost sage to discuss the expansion of the spirit rice plantation. When he was free, he would gather Nangong Huang and the others to train them. Time passed by in an orderly manner. Chu Kuangren's foundation in the Supreme Honorable Realm was getting stronger and stronger, while Nangong Huang, Morong Xian, and the others' improvements were also getting more obvious. What surprised him was that Nangong Huang, Morong Xian, and the others did not complain during the training. They all gritted their teeth and persevered, as if they were holding back their anger. This made Chu Kuangren a little embarrassed to use his full strength. Aside from Nangong Huang, Morong Xian, and the others, Lan Yu had also volunteered to join the training camp. Moreover, she worked even harder than the others. Chu Kuangren could not help but feel sorry for her every time he saw her covered in wounds. Liu Bing, do you think Lan Yu, Nangong Huang, and the others suffered some kind of shock? They suddenly became so hardworking? On top of the mountain peak, Chu Kuangren could not help but feel a little confused as he watched Lan Yu and the others fight with his sword Qi clone. Everyone wants to become stronger, Liu Bing said. Nonsense. Of course you're training so hard to become stronger, but why are you suddenly so obsessed with becoming stronger? Chu Kuangren rolled his eyes and said, Sect leader, I'm afraid you'll have to ask them themselves. Liu Bing smiled faintly. She had been training with Lan Yu and the others for the past few days, so she could roughly guess what everyone was thinking. It was nothing more than the incident in the first city that had given them a lot of shock. They wanted to catch up to Chu Kuangren's footsteps and fight alongside him in the future. At least they would not always be behind Chu Kuangren, watching him take on everything alone and face all his enemies. Forget it, it's always a good thing to want to become stronger. I won't ask anymore. Chu Kuangren thought about it, and then ignored them. In fact, he was happy to see Nangong Huang and the others in their current state. He needed them to grow faster so that he could retire with peace of mind when they were able to take charge. Chu Kuangren felt a lot more relaxed when he thought about how he could quickly get rid of the heavy burden of the sect leader, and not have to deal with a bunch of internal affairs. By the way, Master, tomorrow is the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. Are you interested in watching? Liu Bing suddenly said. The Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. I just discussed it with Elder Ruyan and the others yesterday, so there's no harm in watching. Chu Kuangren smiled faintly. The Inner Disciple Grand Tournament was a common event in many orthodoxies. It was nothing more than gathering a group of inner disciples together, and then competing against each other. The winner would win the prize and become a true disciple. The next day, there was a sea of people in front of the Black Heaven Sect's Longevity Hall. Countless disciples gathered together for the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. As the Black Heaven Sect's foundation improved, the value of such a tournament also increased. The disciples selected were the best of the best, and the worst among the true disciples who could become true disciples were at least nascent soul realm. Moreover, becoming a true disciple was not without worries. Every once in a while, a true disciple would hold a competition, and the true disciple with the worst ranking would be demoted to an inner disciple. Only then could the Black Heaven Sect's disciples maintain a competitive relationship forever. They would be honed and improved through competition. As time passed, the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament went on for 3 days. In the end, the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament selected 4 winners. These 4 people would also receive rewards and be promoted to true disciples. As usual, Chu Kuangren, as the sect leader, had to go up on stage to award the 4 disciples their rewards and encourage them. When Chu Kuangren arrived at the Longevity Hall, a group of outer and inner disciples were already waiting for him. When they saw him, they were extremely excited. Look, it's the sect leader. Wow, the sect leader is getting more and more handsome. No matter how many times I look at his face, I won't get tired of it. Yeah, he's so handsome. I heard that the sect leader caused a ruckus in the first city for the sake of the Taoists. He even forced the first city and Sky Emperor Palace to publicly apologize. He's really amazing. Not only is the sect leader handsome, but he's also very strong. If only I could get close to him. I'm so envious of those 4 inner disciples. They can stand so close to the sect leader. Outside the Longevity Hall, the disciples were in a heated discussion. An elder stood up and looked at the disciples with a stern expression. He shouted, "Silence." Only then did the crowd gradually quiet down. Then Chu Kuangren awarded the 4 disciples who won the Inner Disciple Grand Tournament. Inner Disciple Huaruyu, Please come up on stage to receive your award. Chu Kuangren said calmly. A girl in a red dress walked up. Perhaps she was too excited, but when she approached Chu Kuangren, her face was flushed red. My God, the sect leader is only one step away from me now. He smells so good. Chu Kuangren did not know what Hua Ruyu was thinking. He handed the award to her and smiled. I hope you'll continue to work hard in the future. Yes, sect leader. I'll definitely work hard. Hua Ruyu said excitedly. Alright, good. Chu Kuangren used his eye of revelation to look at her. She was quite talented, and her growth potential was considered top-notch among the disciples. Then he gave the other 3 disciples their awards. When he was giving the award to a disciple named Zhao Tianlong, he squinted his eyes and revealed a strange look. Chapter 335. Zhao Tianlong, an inner disciple of the Black Heaven sect. He concealed his identity as a spy from the underworld of the demonic Tao. He was once a perfected nascent soul cultivator, but his current cultivation is at the mid-stage nascent soul realm. It is suspected that he used some kind of secret technique to cripple his own cultivation and cultivate a supreme technique. Chu Kuangren looked at the young disciple in front of him who was staring at him with a face full of passion, and he could not help but reveal a hint of playfulness in his eyes. Weren't the demonic path disciples afraid of him to death? How could this guy look at him with such worship? TSK, his acting skills are not bad. Chu Kuangren smiled and gave them their prizes. He then said calmly, work hard, all of you are the future of the Black Heaven sect. Zhao Tianlong nodded excitedly. Yes, sect master. Humph. The future of the Black Heaven sect? Chu Kuangren, you would never have guessed that I'm a spy from the Underworld Palace. One day, I will dig out all the secrets of the Black Heaven sect and send them back to the headquarters to kill you all. At that time, I will be the greatest hero of the demonic path. Ha ha ha. Thinking up to this point, an excited expression appeared on Zhao Tianlong's face. In the eyes of others, this was just him feeling happy that he was about to become a successor disciple. Thus he did not think too much about it. After awarding the prizes to the few disciples, Chu Kuangren walked into the longevity hall and said to Elder Ruyan, give me Zhao Tianlong's information later. Once the crowd has dispersed, bring him over. Elder Ruyan was taken aback. Is there a problem with this person? Yes. Alright, I understand. Elder Ruyan nodded. Not long after, a document appeared in Chu Kuangren's hands. It was the entire process of Zhao Tianlong's entry into the sect. According to the information, Zhao Tianlong's cultivation was only at the Foundation Establishment realm when he first joined the sect. In just over a year, he had advanced from the Foundation Establishment realm to the Nascent Soul realm. The speed of his advancement far surpassed that of his peers. When Chu Kuangren used the Eye of Revelation to observe the other party, it showed that the other party's original cultivation level was at the Nascent Soul realm, but he later used some kind of secret technique to destroy his own cultivation level and start from scratch. TSK, in order to conceal his identity as a disciple of the demonic Tao, he sacrificed quite a lot. He was originally at the peak of the Nascent Soul stage, so it was quite fast for him to cultivate again. It's not strange for him to reach the Nascent Soul stage from Qi condensation in a short year. The people of Hell might make for a good pawn. Chu Kuangren muttered. After a while, Zhao Tianlong arrived at the longevity hall. Deep down he was secretly delighted. Could it be that Chu Kuangren had summoned him alone to give him a special reward? Come to think of it, Chu Kuangren had managed to advance from the Foundation Establishment realm to the mid-nascent soul realm in just a year. No matter which orthodoxy he was in, he would be the top sky pride. It was reasonable for Chu Kuangren to value him. What was he going to reward him with? Pills, weapons? Could it be some kind of saint technique? Zhao Tianlong felt a little excited just thinking about it. The newly promoted direct disciple, Zhao Tianlong, greets the sect master. And you're welcome. May I know why the sect leader has suddenly summoned me? It's like this. Now that you've become a true disciple, you're now qualified to comprehend the 12 sage techniques of our Black Heaven sect. Have you decided which one you want to comprehend? Chu Kuangren chuckled. Sure enough, Chu Kuangren is secretly trying to promote me. He's even planning to open the back door for me and secretly give me pointers. Zhao Tianlong thought complacently. Please give me pointers, sect leader. Not pointers, but I'm a little curious. Do the Underworld Palace have more sage techniques, or the Black Heaven sect? As soon as he said that, Zhao Tianlong's face turned extremely pale. His hands and feet turned cold, and he could not help but tremble. His initial complacency vanished in an instant, and was replaced by a great fear that shrouded him from head to toe. Sect leader, what are you talking about? He said with a trembling voice. What, you don't know? I thought that since you've done so much for the Underworld Palace, crippling your own cultivation, and infiltrating my Black Heaven sect as a spy, the Underworld Palace would at least reward you with a sage technique. Don't tell me that the Underworld Palace is so stingy that they wouldn't even give you such a reward? Chu Kuangren sat in the longevity hall and said playfully. After hearing his words, Zhao Tianlong's body went limp and he immediately knelt on the ground. His body could not help but tremble. He wanted to say something, but his throat seemed to be stuck, so he could not utter a single word. What, you don't want to argue anymore? Sect leader, please spare my life. Zhao Tianlong begged for mercy, but it was as if he had used up all the energy in his body. His body was covered in a layer of cold sweat. Tell me, how many times have you sent news to the Underworld Palace in the past year? What kind of news? Chu Kuangren asked calmly. Zhao Tianlong was terrified. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to see through his identity the first time he met him. Not only that, Chu Kuangren even knew that he was from the Underworld Palace, and that he had crippled his own cultivation. This was not as simple as him giving himself away. He even suspected that Chu Kuangren had planted spies in the Underworld Palace, and the higher-ups at that too. Otherwise, how could Chu Kuangren know so much about him? A total of 2 times. The first was when I first arrived at the Black Heaven sect to report to the Underworld Palace, and the second was to report on the Black Heaven sect's basic situation, including the Sword Gauntlet, the Gravity Training Grounds, and other cultivation grounds. Zhao Tianlong did not dare to hide anything and told Chu Kuangren everything. Beside him, Elder Rian listened with a gloomy expression. Zhao Tianlong did not divulge much information, so it did not affect the Black Heaven sect too much. However, this was only because he had only been in the Black Heaven sect for slightly more than a year. What if he was given more time? Not to mention that he had already become a true disciple, and was qualified to come into contact with the true secrets of the Black Heaven sect. For example, sage techniques, spiritual rice farming, the marrow cleansing pool, and so on. If these were to spread, Elder Rian could not imagine how much of an impact it would have on the Black Heaven sect. Sect leader, it's my fault for letting a spy infiltrate the Black Heaven sect. Please punish me, sect leader. Elder Rian said guiltily. Well, you can't be blamed for this. The Underworld Palace is cunning and cunning. Since that person destroyed his own cultivation base, it's only natural that you couldn't detect it. Just pay more attention from now on, Chu Kuangren said. If not for his eye of revelation, he would not have noticed it either. Sect leader, what should we do about Zhao Tianlong? A cold glint flashed across Elder Rian's eyes. When Zhao Tianlong heard that, he quickly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Please spare my life, sect leader. I will definitely give my all for the Black Heaven sect in the future. I swear that I will never contact the underworld again. No, I want you to continue being a spy. Chu Kuangren suddenly uttered something shocking. Astonished expressions appeared on the faces of Elder Rian and Zhao Tianlong. I want you to continue being a spy. Of course, we'll decide what information you send back to the Underworld Palace. Chu Kuangren smiled. Elder Rian's eyes lit up when she heard that. She understood what Chu Kuangren meant. The Underworld Palace had planted a spy in the Black Heaven sect, but the Black Heaven sect had used that spy to send false information to the Underworld Palace to mislead them. What a great idea, sect leader. Elder Rian praised. Zhao Tianlong breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that. Was it not just a spy from the Underworld Palace becoming a spy for the Black Heaven sect? To him it was nothing. As long as he could survive. Chapter 336. Then, Chu Kuangren took out some poison that he had refined in his spare time and fed it to Zhao Tianlong. With that, the spy was completely under his control. The fact that the Underworld Palace had planted spies in the Black Heaven sect had taught Elder Ruyan and the others a lesson. Hence, they conducted a thorough investigation of their disciples, and with the help of Chu Kuangren's Eye of Revelation, they managed to find a few of them. However, compared to Zhao Tianlong, these disciples were only outer and inner disciples, so they did not have much access to the sect's resources. Chu Kuangren did not let anyone deal with these people. Instead, he ordered Elder Ruyan to keep an eye on them, waiting for them to come in handy. Time passed. A few days had passed. On this day, Elder Ruyan went to find Chu Kuangren with a serious expression. Sect leader, the Black Heaven sect's affiliated sects along the coast were attacked yesterday. They suffered heavy casualties, Elder Ruyan said. Who did it? The Scaled Tribe. They said that if you don't hand over the Trident Halberd and the Emperor-grade treasures from the unnamed island, they will kill 100,000 people every day until all the affiliated sects of the Black Heaven sect are wiped out. Elder Ruyan gritted her teeth and said. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren took a deep breath, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Where are the Scaled Tribe now? The coastal region, the Snowstorm sect. Got it. I'll go there myself, Chu Kuangren said. He walked out of the Longevity Hall, and his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared. The news of the Scaled Tribe provoking the Black Heaven sect spread like wildfire, and more than half of the orthodoxies in Firmament Star had received the news. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen. The Scaled Tribe was the overlord of the ocean. Although their resources could not be compared to the entire human race, they were still more powerful than any sage orthodoxy. After so many years in the ocean, countless sages had been born. Chu Kuangren was not a sage, but he was more powerful than one. In just a few years, he had risen with an unstoppable momentum, becoming the most dazzling legend in Firmament Star for hundreds of thousands of years. The battle between the two must be extraordinary. Azure Dragon Domain, the coastal region of the Snowstorm sect. The corpses of more than 100,000 Snowstorm sect disciples and civilians were piled on the coast, emitting a strong stench of blood. Beside the countless corpses, there were several huge, upright sea beasts that were constantly devouring these corpses. Not far away, the upper echelon elders and sect leader of the Snowwind sect were all shackled and locked in cages. They watched the scene with bloodshot eyes. Look, this is the consequence of going against the Scaled Tribe. At the side of the cage, a Scaled Tribe general in azure armor smiled coldly and said, "Don't worry, it won't just be the Snowstorm sect. As long as Chu Kuangren doesn't hand over the item, we'll continue to kill until we've wiped out all of the Black Heaven sect's affiliated forces. I'd like to see how long Chu Kuangren can endure this. Sect leader will never let you off," the Snow Wind sect leader said with his eyes wide open. Haha, that would be great. I'd like to see what kind of storm Chu Kuangren can stir up. Our Scaled Tribe is a big clan, and we live deep in the ocean. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, do you think he can dive into the ocean to settle the score with us? The seabed is the Scaled Tribe's territory. The Scaled Tribe general laughed out loud. Compared to the other sage orthodoxies of the four domains, the Scaled Tribe was not afraid of Chu Kuangren at all. To them, so what if Chu Kuangren was powerful? He was still a land creature after all, and the Scaled Tribe lived deep in the ocean. In the ocean, no one could do anything to the Scaled Tribe. A night passed. The Scaled Tribe general looked at the rising sun and sneered. It's the second day, and Chu Kuangren still hasn't shown up. Go to the Snowwind sect's territory, and capture another 100,000 people to feed to the oceanic beasts. Yes. A group of Scaled Tribe soldiers rushed towards the city not far away. The Snowwind sect leader and the others who witnessed this scene yelled, "Stop! Come at us if you have the guts." The Scaled Tribe general said, "That won't do. You're the Snowwind sect leader and elders. I want you to watch how we kill the people and disciples that you've been protecting. Just like Chu Kuangren. If he doesn't hand over the item, the Scaled Tribe will watch how his affiliated forces are slaughtered." Be****. The Snowwind sect leader roared. But there was nothing he could do. A large group of scaled tribe soldiers rushed towards the city. Most of these scaled tribe soldiers were covered in scales of different colors, and some even had horns and other organs. They looked extremely ferocious. The people in the city could not help but fall into despair as they looked at the overwhelming number of scaled tribe soldiers. Some of the cultivators gritted their teeth and stepped up to the city walls in an attempt to protect the people in the city. However, their strength was too insignificant in the face of the tens of thousands of scaled tribe soldiers. Wah! An infant in the arms of a woman seemed to have sensed something and started to cry. The woman could not help but hug the infant tighter. Someone please save us. The scaled tribe soldiers had arrived at the city walls and were about to enter the city. The cultivators on the city walls were also prepared to fight to the death. At that moment, a purple sword ray suddenly appeared from afar. The sword ray was as vast as a torrent, covering the entire sky. The sword ray swept across the sky above countless people and rushed into the scaled tribe army. Under the attack of this sword ray, the scaled tribe soldiers, be it nascent soul or paradise realm cultivators, or even the battle monarch realm cultivators, could not resist it at all. They were instantly turned into blood mist and exploded. In just an instant, tens of thousands of scaled tribe soldiers had vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. Far away, amidst the surging sea of clouds, a deafening roar was heard. A large patch of red light floated and dyed the sky red. A blood-red godly phoenix soared into the sky, emitting waves of auspicious chi. On top of the godly phoenix, there was an otherworldly figure dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe with a magnificent longsword strapped to his waist. The godly phoenix in the sea of clouds looked like a deity. It's the sect leader. It's the Black Heaven sect's sect leader, Chu Kwangren. He's here. We're saved. Someone recognized Chu Kwangren and could not help but cheer. The woman hugged the infant and cried tears of joy. The cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. Not far away, a few sea beasts on the shore sensed the godly phoenix's aura and let out a low growl of agitation. The scaled tribe great general's eyes narrowed as he said solemnly, "So he's Chu Kwangren? His aura is extraordinary indeed." Chu Kwangren flew to the sky above the city. With Taoist rhymes emanating from his body, he cast the spring breeze healing technique, and a gust of wind swept across the entire city. Some of the cultivators and citizens who were injured in the scaled tribe's invasion had recovered. They looked at Chu Kwangren with fervent gazes, as if they were devout believers who had met their god. Once that was done, Chu Kwangren rode the godly phoenix to the scaled tribe great general and said, "Let them go and accept your death. Haha, you're indeed the strongest sky pride of the continent. You're indeed extraordinary. We can let them go if you hand over the item, and the scaled tribe will never invade again." The scaled tribe great general laughed. "You have no right to negotiate with me." Is that so?" The scaled tribe great general sneered and waved his hand. Then a few scaled tribe soldiers beside him walked towards the snowstorm sect leader and the others. "If you don't agree, I'll kill them right now. Try me," Chu Kwangren said calmly. An invisible force field spread out with him as the center. It was his battle monarch domain. Under the domain, the scaled tribe soldiers who were near the snowstorm sect leader and the elders were all pressed to the ground, unable to move. "What?" The scaled tribe great general's expression changed. In a flash, he charged towards the snowstorm sect leader and the others despite the pressure from the battle monarch domain. He wanted to capture them as hostages to force Chu Kwangren into submission. However, a ray of light suddenly flashed past him and arrived in front of him. Then, a pale palm enlarged in front of him and strangled him with an unstoppable force. "I told you you have no right to negotiate." Chapter 337. I've said it before. You have no right to negotiate with me. Chu Kwangren said indifferently. His mountain-like fingers gripped the scaled tribe great general's neck, rendering him immobile. His eyes were filled with horror as he stared at Chu Kwangren. After all, he was also an honorable supreme. Yet he did not even have the ability to resist Chu Kwangren. Chu Kwangren's strength was far beyond his imagination. He knew he was no match for Chu Kwangren, but he did not expect to be defeated so badly. Die. Chu Kuangren lifted the Scaled Tribe Great General with one hand. His eyes flashed, and with a slight force from his fingers, a terrifying force erupted. With a loud bang, the Scaled Tribe General exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It was as if he could crush an honorable supreme like a child. Then he unleashed a palm attack, and a few sea beasts on the shore were effortlessly smashed into pieces. Chu Kuangren's unparalleled strength shocked the Scaled Tribe. Meanwhile, the godly phoenix Lil Red hovered in the air and spat out balls of fire onto the Scaled Tribe soldiers, burning them into ashes. When Chu Kuangren came to the side of the cage, he formed a sword finger and several surges of sword chi shot out, tearing the cage apart. The shackles on the Snowstorm sect leader and the others were also shattered one by one, allowing them to regain their freedom. Thank you, sect leader. The Snowstorm sect leader said with a fist salute. He then looked at the hundreds of thousands of corpses on the shore with anger and sorrow in his eyes. Chu Kuangren said, I'll take care of the Scaled Tribe. I'll leave this to you guys. I'll have the godly phoenix stay behind to assist you. Also, the Black Heaven sect will send some people here. Yes, thank you, sect leader. You're welcome. Chu Kuangren stared at the raging waves of the sea with a cold glint in his eyes. He grabbed a Scaled Tribe soldier who was still alive and said coldly, Bring me to the Scaled Tribe. I want to see your king. Yes, yes. The Scaled Tribe soldier did not dare to resist and nodded in fear. At the bottom of the sea, in a magnificent palace, the Scaled Tribe was holding a banquet. Everyone who attended the banquet were famous generals of the Scaled Tribe. There were even some chiefs of the Scaled Tribe. Just like the human race, the Scaled Tribe also had many branches. The most powerful Scaled Tribe was currently in power, the Golden Scaled Tribe. The Golden Scaled Tribe became the royal family of the Scaled Tribe and got the surname Bei Ming. The current king of the Scaled Tribe was named North Sea Peng. At the banquet, mermaids danced, clam spirits served wine, and the guests chatted merrily. It was a flourishing scene. At this moment, a Scaled Tribe member suddenly rushed in, terrified. Reporting to the king, General Bai Lin is dead. The Scaled Tribe members were shocked. General Bai Lin was a famous general among the Scaled Tribe. His sudden death had shocked many of the Scaled Tribe members. Okay, I got it. The Scaled King was not surprised at all. Instead, he said, have Huang Lin's 13 generals get ready and continue to attack the Black Heaven sect's affiliated forces along the coast. As long as Chu Kuangren doesn't hand over the Trident Halberd and the Emperor-grade treasures, kill him until he hands them over. Hearing this, many Scaled Tribe members looked at each other. One of the Scaled Tribe elders stood up and said, My king, isn't it a little too risky to fight Chu Kuangren? Adventure? Heh, no matter how powerful that Chu Kuangren is, do you think he would dare to dive deep into the ocean and cause trouble in our Scaled Tribe's territory? The Scaled King said, amused. He was confident that he would win this battle. The Scaled Tribe lived deep in the ocean. Even if a sage were to come here, their combat strength would be limited by half. The Scaled Tribe members could unleash 100% of their strength in the ocean. Since ancient times, no one had ever been able to fight the Scaled Tribe underwater. The Scaled Tribe members pondered for a while and agreed that it made sense. The banquet continued. General Bai Lin's death seemed to be an insignificant interlude to the crowd. After a brief discussion, it was over. Just as everyone was laughing and chatting, boom! The entire palace suddenly shook violently. What's going on? Why would there be such a sudden tremor? Could it be an earthquake? That's impossible. This hasn't happened in so many years. Why would there be an earthquake all of a sudden? Send someone to check it out. The Scaled Tribe members looked around frantically. At this moment, an elder suddenly appeared beside the Scaled King. The Scaled King was surprised to see this elder. Elder, why are you here? This elder was an elder of the Scaled Tribe Palace. He was also a sage. He stared out of the palace with an unfathomable gaze. He's here. Order all Scaled Tribe cultivators below the Honorable Realm to leave the palace immediately. As for the others, stay here and help me fend off the enemy. Who's here? The Scaled King was a little confused. Do I need to tell you who you've offended? The Scaled Tribe elder glanced at the Scaled King and said calmly, The Scaled King's eyes narrowed. Could it be Chu Kuangren? Why would he dare to come to the deep ocean? There are rumors in the outside world that the Black Heaven sect leader is a lunatic who can't be judged by common sense. It's not surprising that he would do anything, the Scaled Tribe Elder said. The Scaled King was shocked at first, but then he sneered. Since he's here, that's good news. No one is better than the Scaled Tribe when it comes to fighting in the deep ocean. Today, I'll make sure this person doesn't leave this place alive. The Scaled Tribe Elder beside him also had a cold look in his eyes. At this moment, a Scaled Tribe soldier's corpse was tossed into the banquet hall. Outside the Scaled Tribe palace, a white-robed figure descended gracefully. There seemed to be an invisible barrier around his body that isolated the surrounding seawater from Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was not affected in the slightest. It was the treasure that Chu Kuangren had obtained not long ago. The Water Evasion Pearl. Chu Kuangren arrived at the magnificent Scaled Tribe Palace. Sword-based Taoist rhymes circulated around his body, emanating an awe-inspiring aura. Human, what are you doing here? One of the Scaled Tribe generals yelled. I'm here to be a fisherman and kill a few fishes. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. An incredibly sharp sword chi gushed out from his body, causing the surrounding seawater to rumble. The Scaled Tribe general who asked the question was instantly torn apart by the sword chi. The majestic sword chi swept out and filled half of the palace. The entire palace was shrouded in the threat of death. Wherever the sword chi went, the Scaled Tribe members were all killed. Their blood mixed with the seawater and instantly dyed the ocean within a 10-kilometer radius red. Countless Scaled Tribe members fled in terror. Chu Kuangren, how dare you? The Scaled King roared. Then, a black trident appeared in his hand, and he hurled it at Chu Kuangren. The trident carried a majestic torrent of water, as if it was going to destroy everything in its path. It pierced through Chu Kuangren's barrier. The trident's power was so terrifying that it pierced through the barrier around Chu Kuangren. However, half of the torrent of water was dispelled. The remaining energy did not affect Chu Kuangren at all. He raised his hand to grab the trident, and the domineering trident was caught in his grip. It could no longer move forward. The ones who are presumptuous are the Scaled Tribe. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and tossed the trident back. An even more terrifying and violent force was added to it. Upon seeing this, the Scaled King stretched out his hand to grab the trident flying towards him. However, the force contained in the trident sent him flying. The trident slid out of his hand and finally pierced through his shoulder, pinning him to a pillar in the palace. Chapter 338. Clang. The trident pierced into one of the palace's pillars, creating a loud clanging sound. Meanwhile, the Scaled King, who was pinned to the pillar by Chu Kuangren, stared at Chu Kuangren with bloodshot eyes. A sense of humiliation welled up within him. After all, he was the king of the Scaled Tribe, the king that ruled over billions of Scaled Tribe members. Yet now, he was pinned to a pillar by Chu Kuangren in the royal palace under the watchful eyes of the public. How humiliating was that? B*****. Chu Kuangren, I'm going to kill you. I must kill you. The Scaled King roared in rage. Not far away, the Scaled Tribe elder's expression changed as he stared at Chu Kuangren gravely. After all, the Scaled King was also a sage. In terms of combat strength, he was no weaker than the elder. Yet he was pinned to the pillar by Chu Kuangren. Was Chu Kuangren really below the level of a sage? The same thought that all the sages who had seen Chu Kuangren before came to his mind. Chu Kuangren said, "The Scaled Tribe has invaded my Black Heaven sect and killed more than 100,000 people from my affiliated forces. The number of other casualties is uncountable. I shall settle this score with you today." Chu Kuangren, don't get too full of yourself. This is the deep ocean, not a place where you can do whatever you want, the Scaled Tribe elder said. Then he channeled the torrential force around him, and a majestic Taoist rhyme exploded towards Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren was not afraid at all. He swung the long sword in his hand, and shattered the torrential force along with the Taoist rhyme. Even before the sword chi's power dissipated, it was already closing in on the Scaled Tribe elder. The violent energy made the Scaled Tribe elder's eyelids twitch. He then channeled his spiritual power and unleashed another palm attack. However, the terrifying sword chi still sent him flying hundreds of feet away. He crashed into the palace wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. How can this be? How can he have such combat strength? The scaled tribe elder was shocked and confused at the same time. After all, they were in the deep ocean. Even a human sage might not be able to unleash half of his combat strength in such an environment. Yet Chu Kuangren still had such terrifying strength. In fact, it was even more powerful than what he displayed on the unnamed island. Scaled tribe soldiers, kill him. At this moment, the Scaled King, who had just pulled out the trident from the pillar, let out a loud roar. All the soldiers in the palace moved out at the same time. Not long after, the Scaled tribe army, which numbered in the millions or even tens of millions, had surrounded Chu Kuangren in a tight circle. Then, the Scaled King took out something that looked like a horn and blew it. The sound of the horn echoed in the sea. All the sea beasts within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles rushed toward the palace, as if they had been summoned. Chu Kuangren, you must die here today. The Scaled King glared at Chu Kuangren with intense hatred in his eyes. When Chu Kuangren saw that, he sneered and said, "It's still too early to tell who will emerge victorious. Today, I shall see for myself what you so-called rulers of the ocean are capable of." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his sword in all directions. The violent sword chi instantly reaped the lives of a large number of Scaled tribe soldiers. Right now, he was a supreme honorable being, and his battle prowess was a level higher than when he was on the nameless island. Although he was now in the deep sea, with the water evasion pearl, he could still unleash half of his battle prowess. Chu Kuangren held the Descendant Self sword in his hand. Wherever his sword chi went, countless Scaled tribe soldiers would perish under his sword. In just a short while, hundreds of thousands of Scaled tribe members had lost their lives, and their blood dyed the ocean red. Kill. Kill them all. Chu Kuangren, you're in the deep sea now. Even if you have a way to maintain your battle prowess, you're still one man with limited stamina. Let's see how you're going to outlast my endless Scaled tribe army. The Scaled King roared, his eyes bloodshot. He was willing to sacrifice the lives of countless Scaled tribe soldiers just to kill Chu Kuangren. It was not just to regain his pride. It was also to reclaim the trident in Chu Kuangren's hand and the emperor-grade treasure that he had obtained on the nameless island. Come on, let's see who's going to win. Chu Kuangren faced the endless Scaled tribe army with a cold expression. He waved the Descendant Self sword in his hand, and majestic sword chi gushed out continuously. Eventually, he felt that this was too slow, so he took out the lingering song Guqin. Chu Kuangren sat cross-legged in the middle of the army and plucked the strings with all 10 fingers. The terrifying Guqin Taoist rhymes caused the ocean to tumble and spread in all directions. The first 4 movements of the 8 celestial demonic chords were played consecutively. Although its power was slightly reduced in the ocean, it was still not something that the Scaled tribe soldiers could withstand. Wherever the Guqin music passed, the Scaled tribe soldiers exploded one after another. 30 kilometers. The maximum range of his Guqin music attack is 30 kilometers. Everyone, retreat to 30 kilometers away and attack from afar. At that moment, one of the Scaled tribe generals noticed the attack range of Chu Kuangren's Guqin music and began to arrange his troops. Countless Scaled tribe soldiers retreated to 30 kilometers away, took out rows of specially made bows and arrows, and shot them at Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren remained calm despite the incoming rain of arrows. He plucked the Guqin strings with his fingers, and a Guqin music spread out. The rain of arrows was instantly dispersed by the Guqin music. It did not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. 30 kilometers? My Guqin music is not that weak. Chu Kuangren said calmly. With 10 fingers plucking, the 5th movement, the 6th movement, and the 7th movement, Earthly Reverberation, were played consecutively. The terrifying Guqin music Taoist rhymes instantly increased, and the entire ocean became turbulent and turbulent. The Scaled tribe soldiers who had retreated to 30 kilometers away were once again attacked by the Guqin music, and a large number of them were killed or injured. D***MN. This guy is using Guqin music at such a fast rate. Don't fight him head-on. Keep retreating and keep attacking from afar to force him to use up his spiritual power. The Scaled King said loudly. Chu Kuangren sneered at his words. Is this the demeanor of a ruler? Letting your subordinates die for you? Fight for me, die for me. This is the fate of every Scaled tribe member. The Scaled King said loudly. The brave Scaled tribe members are never afraid of battle. We live for battle, and we die for battle. Kill. Kill, kill, kill. Countless Scaled tribe soldiers roared with bloodshot eyes. Chu Kuangren noticed that when the Scaled King shouted, a formless Taoist rhyme emanated from his body. It affected the Scaled tribe soldiers and made them fearless. Oh, a technique that bewitches the human mind. Interesting. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes as he activated his Eye of Revelation. He realized that the Scaled King was able to bewitch millions of Scaled tribe soldiers not only because of his bewitching technique, but also because of his charisma as the ruler of the Scaled tribe. With these two factors working together, the Scaled tribe soldiers became fearless, allowing them to unleash extraordinary combat strength. Then I shall kill you first. Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the Scaled King. He wanted to capture the leader first. However, he did not expect a blue barrier to suddenly appear around the Scaled King, blocking his path. A female Scaled tribe member slowly walked out from behind the Scaled King. Her Taoist rhyme was extremely powerful, and it was no weaker than a great sage's. Chapter 339. You're not strong enough to break my cerulean aqua canopy, the woman from the Scaled race said faintly with a proud look on her cold face. She was a great sage of the Scaled race. Chu Kuangren smirked at that. How hard can it be to break your aqua canopy? Chu Kuangren's body suddenly emitted a blood-red flame, and his aura was instantly stabilized. With a slash of his sword, a dazzling sword ray instantly erupted, emitting a strong emperor's aura. The sword chi instantly tore through the cerulean aqua canopy. The female Scaled tribe great sage's expression changed. Not good. She grabbed the Scaled King and quickly retreated. However, the sword light followed him like a shadow, chasing him relentlessly. D*eminent water bloom. The Scaled tribe great sage roared and unleashed a palm attack. Rays of light gathered in her palm before she blasted it towards the sword chi. With a loud explosion, the Taoist rhymes formed by the intertwining sword chi and palm chi spread outwards. The water around them tumbled, and the Scaled King was forced to retreat by hundreds of meters. The Scaled tribe great sage was also forced to retreat by hundreds of meters with a bloody wound on her palm. She looked at Chu Kuangren in fear. What a terrifying sword chi. And that blood-red flame, could it be the legendary 9 Deaths blazing blood art? How dare he use such a technique? What a lunatic! The Scaled tribe great sage muttered. Elder Bei Mingfang, are you alright? The Scaled King asked. I'm fine, but this person's combat strength is extraordinary. You're no match for him, Scaled King. Please retreat. Bei Mingfang said solemnly. Rest assured, Elder. The other elders are already on their way. All we need to do is delay him for a while. This person's combat strength may be strong, but he's single-handedly going against an entire army, and using a forbidden technique like the 9 Deaths blazing blood art. He'll definitely die today. The Scaled King said coldly. He had no intention of retreating, and he looked like he had already won. Bei Mingfang pondered for a while and nodded in agreement. She looked at Chu Kuangren as if she was looking at a dead man, single-handedly going against the entire Scaled tribe. Only an idiot would do such a thing. Chu Kuangren's plan to capture the ringleader was thwarted by Bei Mingfang, and the million-strong army had already surrounded them. Not only that, there were countless ferocious sea beasts coming from afar. Their combat strength was not any weaker than the 10 million Scaled tribe army. Chu Kuangren could not help but laugh when he saw that. Haha, an army against a sea beast. What a unique battle. I would like to see how many more soldiers and sea beasts the Scaled tribe has left for me to slaughter. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he plucked the zither strings with his fingers. Waves of majestic zither music Taoist rhymes spread out continuously, shaking the ocean for thousands of miles. The Scaled tribe soldiers and the sea beasts were losing their lives one after another. The intensity of the battle had already dyed the seawater red. Sword chi transformation. As if he felt that he was still too slow, surges of sword chi shot out from Chu Kuangren's body and transformed into clones that charged in all directions. Sword chi clone. 8 celestial demonic cords. In Chu Kuangren's hands, the 2 emperor techniques were unleashed to their fullest potential. They were the most terrifying offensive weapons in the world. The Scaled Tribe army and the oceanic beasts were being massacred by such an attack. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren was standing alone in the sea of blood. His white robe was so blindingly white that it was cruel to look at it. He had killed so many people, but his white robe was still spotless and his appearance was still otherworldly. It was as if killing a bunch of ants was not enough to make him feel the slightest bit of pity. Demon. This guy must be a demon. He's too scary. Ah, don't kill me, don't kill me. Finally, under Chu Kuangren's merciless slaughter, many soldiers had broken down. They dropped their weapons and began to flee. Even the Scaled King's bewitching technique was useless against them. Fear was the most primal instinct. The fear that Chu Kuangren instilled in them had far surpassed the effect of the Scaled King's technique. Is this guy really human? Why is he still alive after using the 9 Deaths blazing blood art for so long? The Scaled King and Bei Mingfang were also dumbfounded by what they saw. It was too terrifying. It was too horrifying. For Chu Kuangren to be able to fight to such an extent in the deep sea, the strength that he had shown them was too terrifying. At that moment, even the Scaled King was feeling a little regretful. Perhaps he should not have provoked this guy in the first place. However, it was useless to think about that now. With the enemy before him, he had no way out. Boom. At that moment, a horrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from afar. A palm chi rolled up the water current and struck towards Chu Kuangren. Another sage. Chu Kuangren sneered. Then he plucked the guqin strings with his fingers and the third movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords. The melodious chime erupted, shattering the palm chi. When the 2 forces collided, Chu Kuangren was pushed back a few meters. Behind him, another surge of Taoist rhyme erupted. Chu Kuangren held the guqin in his left hand and swung the sword in his right. With a clanging sound, the Kunwu sword slashed on the other blue sword. The collision between the 2 sword edges burst out streams of sword chi, which streaked across the water and exploded at the bottom of the sea, forming bubbles and then disappearing. Chu Kuangren looked at the sword-wielding figure. It was a handsome middle-aged Scaled Tribe man with a few golden scales on his cheeks. His body surged with a vast surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme. His sword Tao was far beyond any swordsman that Chu Kuangren had ever met. Even the Tempest Mountain, the Linghu clan, or even the Black Heaven sect, might not be able to find such a swordsman. After the 2 swords collided, they were both pushed back. The Scaled Tribe's heritage is indeed extraordinary. Chu Kuangren was secretly surprised. After he had blocked the attacks from the 2 sages, a few more Scaled Tribe members had appeared around him. Each of them was a sage, and each of them alone could rival a 1,000,000-strong Scaled Tribe army. A smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face as he watched. The real show is about to begin. The Scaled Tribe army and the oceanic beasts were merely used by the Scaled King to delay Chu Kuangren. These sages were the true means to kill him. Chu Kuangren, how dare you invade our Scaled Tribe and commit such a heinous crime? You deserve to die 1,000 times over. One of the sages questioned Chu Kuangren furiously as he looked at the corpses around him and the blood-stained seawater. Chu Kuangren could not help but laugh when he heard that. Heinous crime? Deserve to die 1,000 times over? Then what have the Black Heaven sect's people along the coastline done wrong? Now you're telling me that I deserve to die 1,000 times over? Don't you think that's ridiculous? Humph, you stole the Scaled Tribe's treasure, the Sea King's halberd. That's the reason they died. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself, the sect leader. The trident was lost to me by your Scaled Tribe's young master. If that's the reason they died, then I have nothing else to say. I can only apologize to them with the blood of the Scaled Tribe. For every person the Scaled Tribe killed, I'll kill 1,000 of your people. This time, the Black Heaven sect has lost more than 100,000 people, and the ones I've just killed are far from enough. Chapter 340. 10 times more was not enough. Even 100 times more was not enough. What Chu Kuangren wanted was 1,000 times more. If you kill one of my people, I'll kill 1,000 of your people. Chu Kuangren's words made the scaled tribe sages tremble in anger. Their Taoist rhymes circulated violently as they glared at Chu Kuangren, wishing they could cut him into 1,000 pieces. 1,000 lives for a single life. Chu Kuangren, once we arrive, you won't be able to kill a single one of us. One of the sages said angrily as he unleashed a palm attack towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren plucked the guqin strings, and a terrifying guqin music erupted. The guqin music and palm chi collided, and both sides were pushed back. The other scaled tribe sages had also made their moves. There were 7 scaled tribe sages present. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and scanned them one by one. He noticed that there were 2 5-step sages, 3 7-step sages, and the remaining 2 were great sages. Those 2 great sages were Bei Mingfang and the sword-wielding middle-aged scaled tribe sage called Bei Minghuan. These 2 were the biggest threats to Chu Kuangren. Bei Minghuan in particular had reached the 3-step great sage level, which was even stronger than the first prefect of the first city. In the past, such a lineup would have been troublesome to deal with. Unfortunately, I'm no longer the same as before. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Ever since he became an honorable supreme, it was no longer difficult for him to deal with a great sage. Even the 7 of them could not suppress him. After a fierce battle, Chu Kuangren did not suffer any injuries. Instead, he killed one of the 7 sages with his sword. D***. How can he not have any side effects after using the 9 deaths blazing blood art for so long? The Scaled King was shocked as he watched Chu Kuangren fight the 7 scaled tribe sages. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to have such combat strength in the deep ocean. This won't do. Even the sages can't defeat Chu Kuangren. It looks like I'll have to use that item now. The Scaled King thought to himself. Then his figure flashed and disappeared into the depths of the royal palace. In the deep ocean, Chu Kuangren was battling the remaining 6 sages. All sorts of Taoist rhymes intertwined and collided in the void. Boom. Chu Kuangren was sent flying by Bei Minghuan's attack, but after he regained his balance, he suddenly pointed a finger at a sage beside him. Heart-piercing finger. It was Chu Kuangren's first time unleashing such an emperor technique, so the sage before him was caught off guard. He felt his Taoist core tremble, and he was momentarily dazed. Then, a majestic spiritual power and Taoist rhyme formed a black finger that smashed onto the sage's chest. With a bang, even the body of a sage could not withstand such a terrifying force. His chest collapsed instantly, and all the muscles and bones in his body exploded. A sage was forcefully killed by this one finger. What cultivation method is this? Emperor Aura. This is also an emperor art. Doppelganger monarch art, sword monarch art, zither monarch art. Including this finger, he has already executed a total of 4 monarch arts. Why does this guy have so many monarch arts? Where did he come from? All the sages were dumbfounded. In this age of chaos, an emperor technique was too rare. Even the scaled tribe, which had a rich heritage, only possessed an incomplete emperor scripture. Yet Chu Kuangren possessed several emperor techniques. What kind of opportunity of fortune and luck did he have to do that? The scaled tribe sages were extremely shocked. He has used so many emperor techniques consecutively, and the amount of spiritual power he has consumed is unimaginable. He won't last long, Bei Mingfang said. At that, Chu Kuangren sneered. If the sages of the 4 domains were here, they would never say something like that. What do you mean? What I mean is that the scaled tribe is really stupid. How could you not do any intelligence work before dealing with someone? Chu Kuangren said. Then, as he raised his hand, an extremely terrifying suction force erupted from his palm. The corpses around him turned into countless fleshly essences, and surged towards him like rivers flowing into the sea. Chu Kuangren's spiritual power, which had been depleted by half, was rapidly recovering. The few sages had tried their best to make Chu Kuangren's weakened aura recover at a rapid pace. Absorbing blood and flesh essences into spiritual power? D***. What kind of weird technique is this? Aside from emperor techniques, How could he have such a strange technique? Quick, stop him. Bei Mingfang's expression changed. The other sages immediately took action. A few Taoist rhymes circulated and attacked Chu Kuangren. At that moment, white lotuses floated around Chu Kuangren's body, and the sages' attacks landed on them with loud explosions. One after another, the white lotuses shattered. However, it also bought Chu Kuangren some time. When the sages' attacks were about to reach him, Chu Kuangren, who had recovered most of his spiritual power, plucked the guqin strings, and an indescribable guqin Taoist rhyme erupted. Final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, grand melodic silence. The soundless guqin music erupted with Taoist rhymes. In the past, Chu Kuangren could use this technique to kill a great sage. Now that he had reached the supreme honorable realm, coupled with the enhancement of the 9 deaths blazing blood art, it was unimaginable. The strength of this movement was unimaginable. The terrifying sound of the zither shattered the attacks of the sages. The sound of the zither spread and set off shocking waves. Several sages were affected on the spot and were blasted away. Except for the 2 great sages, Bei Minghuan and Bei Minghang, the other sages were killed on the spot. One guqin music killed 4 sages and severely injured 2 great sages. Bei Minghuan and Bei Mingfang's pupils shrank when they saw such terrifying power. They stared at Chu Kuangren in horror. How can his combat strength be so incredible? This is the Scaled Tribe's calamity. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to finish off the remaining 2 great sages, a ray of blue light suddenly shot into the sky from the depths of the palace. The light circulated and formed a huge door in the middle of the ocean. A surge of dense spatial energy erupted. What's going on? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. This is the gate of the bottomless chasm. It's the king. He's asking for help from the bottomless chasm. Bei Mingfang and Bei Minghuan were overjoyed when they saw the door. In the depths of the palace, the scaled king looked at the huge door in the air excitedly. Is this the legendary gate of the bottomless chasm? Legend has it that the final destination of the past scaled kings leads to the supreme kingdom of the ocean. The bottomless chasm was an ancient kingdom of the ocean that was passed down from generation to generation in the scaled tribe. Legend had it that every scaled king would head to this place after becoming a sage, and become a member of this kingdom. It was one of the unknown lands in the firmament star. Every scaled king possessed this secret treasure that could open the gate of the bottomless chasm, and ask for help from the bottomless chasm. The scaled king had used this secret treasure to open the gate of the bottomless chasm. Buzz, buzz. At that moment, the gate of the bottomless chasm let out a deep sound. The huge door opened to both sides. A middle-aged man with a golden scale armor and a golden trident walked out, and a terrifying aura instantly engulfed the entire place. It's the Scaled Tribe's 4th king, Bei Mingxiu. The Scaled King exclaimed when he saw this person. Chapter 341. The Scaled King looked at the man who walked out of the bottomless chasm excitedly. He recognized the man. He also recognized the golden trident in the man's hand. According to the tribe's records, it was a divine weapon of the Scaled Tribe, just like the Sea King's trident, the golden trident. The golden trident had always been in Bei Mingxiu's possession. It was said that he was a rare genius of the Scaled Tribe, and only he could unleash the full power of the golden trident. Hence, when he left, he did not leave the golden trident behind, but brought the divine weapon along with him. Although this incident displeased the later Scaled Kings, the Scaled King felt a sense of relief when he saw Bei Mingxiu. As long as Bei Mingxiu was here, Chu Kuangren would die today. The Scaled King thought to himself. The Scaled Tribe's 4th king, Bei Mingxiu, one of the bottomless chasm's 7 great chasm dwellers. His cultivation level is at the peak of the 7th step great sage. He cultivates the Northern Dark Black Water Technique, Sage Ruler Technique, Ocean Halberd Technique, Sage Ruler Technique. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation to analyze Bei Mingxiu's information. Peak of the 7th step great sage? The bottomless chasm. Chu Kuangren's eyes turned serious. He had never heard of the bottomless chasm, but he knew that it must be a powerful place to have a 7th step great sage like Bei Mingxiu. Is it one of the unknown lands? Chu Kuangren murmured. None of the known sage orthodoxies in the firmament star had a peak of the seventh-step great sage like Bei Mingxiu. It would be a miracle if they had a normal great sage. The only explanation was that it was the unknown lands. Only a mysterious place like that could have such a strong cultivator. Where's the current scaled king? Bei Mingxiu said faintly. The scaled king hurried forward and said respectfully. The 11th scaled king, Bei Mingpeng, greets you, King Bei Mingxiu. Bei Mingxiu glanced at him and said, You opened the bottomless chasm's door and summoned me here. Did something happen? That's right. This villain has invaded the scaled tribe and killed millions of our soldiers. He even killed a few sages. Please, King Bei Mingxiu, help us get rid of this threat. The scaled king said angrily. Bei Mingxiu looked at Chu Kuangren when he heard that. His face darkened when he saw the mountains of corpses and seas of blood around him. Chu Kuangren sneered. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Chu Kuangren. An incredibly violent great sage Taoist rhyme instantly erupted and charged towards Chu Kuangren. Then the golden halberd in his hand seemed to have sensed something and trembled. Bei Mingxiu was rather surprised. Is my clan Sea King's halberd in your hands? So what if I am? Humph, you've killed so many of my scaled tribe members and taken the Sea King's halberd. I will kill you today. Bei Mingxiu said as he gently waved the golden trident in his hand. A terrifying torrential force that was imbued with Taoist rhymes swept out and blasted towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren could feel an immense pressure from that one attack alone. Not daring to be careless, Chu Kuangren abruptly plucked and released the strings of the guqin in his hand. The final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, Grand Melodic Desolation, was unleashed. As the two surges of Taoist rhymes collided, the torrential force rushed towards Chu Kuangren. However, a large portion of it was blocked by Chu Kuangren's force field. This force field is a little strange. It can actually block most of my torrential force. It seems like this force field is the reason why this person can move freely in the deep sea, and even unleash such extraordinary combat strength. Bei Mingxiu thought to himself. However, he did not feel troubled at all. With the golden trident in his hand and his status as a 7th-step great sage, he did not believe that he could not handle someone who was below the level of a sage. First form of the ocean reversal halberd technique. Bei Mingxiu swung the golden halberd in his hand, and an even more violent torrential force swept out. However, he did not stop there and continued to swing the golden halberd. Second form, third form. The power of each swing was stronger than the previous one. It was as if the power from the previous one was stacked on top of each other. When it came to the 9th swing, the power of the 9 halberd attacks had reached an unimaginable level. The terrifying Taoist rhyme seemed to be able to overturn the entire ocean. The last swing of the halberd exploded and turned into a majestic torrential force that surged towards Chu Kuangren. Even though Chu Kuangren had the water evasion pearl that could block a portion of the damage, the terrifying Taoist rhyme still inflicted heavy damage on him. Half of his body was almost crushed by the torrential force. Blood, bones, and pieces of his internal organs exploded and scattered into the ocean. Bei Minghuan, the scaled king, and the others were overjoyed when they saw that. As expected of the 4th scaled king, his strength is so strong that it's shocking. With the golden trident in his hand, his combat strength is almost on par with the legendary sage rulers. He's just too powerful. Bei Minghuan exclaimed. The others were also filled with admiration. The scaled king, on the other hand, looked at the golden trident enviously. The reason why Bei Mingxiu could unleash such powerful combat strength was largely due to that golden trident. That was a boundary emperor weapon. One strike is enough to kill you. Bei Mingxiu snorted with a proud look on his face. Is this the power of a sage ruler? It's impressive indeed. It's almost on par with the sage rulers of the ancient battlefield. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Half of his body had been destroyed, but his expression was still calm as if it was not his body that was destroyed. He even casually commented on Bei Mingxiu's strength, which left many people speechless. Did Chu Kuangren go deep into the ancient battlefield and meet a sage ruler? This guy really had the guts to go anywhere. No, look. At that moment, Bei Mingfang suddenly exclaimed. Chu Kuangren's destroyed body was recovering at an incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, half of his body that had been destroyed had been restored to its original state. Everyone was dumbfounded by that scene. What technique is that? How did he do that? Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren as if he was a monster. They had seen recovery-type cultivation techniques before, but it was their first time seeing one as terrifying as Chu Kuangren's. Half of his body had been destroyed, but he could still talk and laugh, and he could even recover in such a short period of time. That kind of ability was just too insane. This guy, don't tell me he has an immortal body. Some scaled tribe members said in disbelief. No, that's impossible. There's no such thing as an immortal body in this world. I'd like to see how many times you can recover. Bei Mingxiu's eyes turned cold. He did not believe in the so-called immortal body, so he waved his halberd and charged towards Chu Kuangren again. However, Chu Kuangren did not back down against a 7-step great sage with a golden halberd in his hand. The exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, infallible tormented physique, transcendent coalescence physique, and the 9 deaths blazing blood art had boosted his combat strength to another level. Clang! The descendant self-sword and the golden halberd clashed once again, and a sound wave that was so intense that it set off waves on the ocean's surface. The terrifying Taoist rhymes intertwined in the ocean and exploded into a magnificent radiance. After that attack, Chu Kuangren was blasted hundreds of feet away. Then surges of sword chi shot out from his body and turned into countless sword chi clones that flew in all directions. Chapter 342. Haha, even your real body can't hurt me. No matter how many sword chi clones there are, what can they do to me? Bei Mingxiu had a look of disdain on his face. Chu Kuangren replied calmly. Indeed, they can't hurt you, but unfortunately, these sword chi clones aren't meant to kill you. The clones dashed in all directions and began to slaughter the scaled tribe members as soon as they entered the crowd. Sword chi flew everywhere, and the scaled tribe members were killed on the spot. Bei Mingxiu was deeply provoked by that scene. B****. How dare you kill my people? Bei Mingxiu glared at Chu Kuangren furiously. If the scaled tribe kills one of my people, I'll kill 1,000 of them. Do you think I'm joking? Chu Kuangren said coldly. You deserve to die for killing the innocent. Haha, to protect the Black Heaven sex people, I'm willing to bear the consequences of my sins. If you want to blame someone, blame the scaled tribe king for invading my Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren laughed arrogantly. Were there innocent people in the scaled tribe? There were. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about that anymore. That was the only way he could kill so many scaled tribe members that they would not dare to invade the Black Heaven sect again. That was the only way the world would fear Chu Kuangren. You're a lunatic. The scaled king glared at Chu Kuangren with bloodshot eyes. He could not wait to cut Chu Kuangren into 1,000 pieces. At the same time, he could not help but feel a sense of regret. If he knew he would provoke such a lunatic, he would not have invaded the Black Heaven sect and caused the deaths of countless scaled tribe members. Go to hell. Bei Mingxiu attacked furiously, and the power of his trident increased. When Chu Kuangren recalled the hundreds of thousands of people who were killed and turned into food for the oceanic beasts, he too was enraged. Raging God's fist. He let out a long roar, and a violent surge of Taoist rhyme instantly erupted. When he threw out a punch, a pitch-black fist imbued with an unquenchable rage was unleashed. Suddenly, a large number of bubbles began to tumble in the sea as the raging flames caused the sea to boil. The fist and the halberd collided, and a violent force shot out, sweeping through more than half of the palace. Under this force, the resplendent palace gradually fell apart, turning into ruins, leaving only countless broken walls. The battle between Bei Mingxiu and Chu Kuangren was still ongoing. Bei Mingxiu wanted to kill Chu Kuangren and end his massacre, but he was helpless. His opponent had an immortal body, so it was difficult to kill him in one go. There was even a time when Bei Mingxiu had smashed half of Chu Kuangren's head into pieces. However, Chu Kuangren was still able to recover in such a short amount of time. That kind of ability made every scaled tribe member's scalp tingle. An unruly and unkillable existence was too terrifying. Even Bei Mingxiu could not help but feel a chill from the bottom of his heart, which made him feel a rare sense of fear. To him, Chu Kuangren was no longer a human. This was a monster. Chu Kuangren's massacre was still ongoing. His sword chi clones were scattered all over the place. With his current strength, although he could only summon 100 sword chi clones, each of them had the combat strength of an honorable. The ordinary scaled tribe soldiers would not stand a chance against them. Bei Minghuan, Bei Mingfang, and the Scaled King were all severely injured. They had no problem protecting themselves, but they were powerless to stop these clones from slaughtering them. At that moment, the entire Scaled tribe was filled with cries of agony. Chu Kuangren's sword chi clones did not differentiate between good and evil. Wherever they went, they only had one goal: to kill everyone on sight. How much damage could 100 supreme beings cause if they attacked one after another? Now the Scaled tribe had experienced it firsthand. D*mn. Bei Mingxiu was so angry that he was about to lose his mind. However, he wielded his trident and channeled the torrential force towards Chu Kuangren. Torrential bind. Under the torrential bind, Chu Kuangren's limbs were bound, making it hard for him to move. No matter how much he channeled his spiritual power, he could not break free. Bei Mingxiu channeled all the spiritual power in his body and snorted. "Since I can't kill you, I shall seal you in this deep ocean." With a loud roar, the seabed suddenly shook, and a huge crack appeared. It seemed like Bei Mingxiu wanted to seal Chu Kuangren in this crack. The surrounding torrential water wrapped around Chu Kuangren's body, and gradually turned into solid blue chains with countless mysterious runes on them. "Seal it." These blue chains pulled Chu Kuangren and gradually dragged him into the dark crevice where he could not see the light of day. As the power of the seal strengthened, the spiritual power in Chu Kuangren's body was also affected. The sword chi clones that he sent out dissipated one by one. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to be sealed, a pitch-black spatial crack suddenly appeared in the sea. A terrifying emperor's aura spread out from it, and everything in the surroundings was reduced to nothingness under this emperor's aura. Large amounts of seawater were pushed away, forming a huge spherical space in the deep ocean. Under the influence of this emperor's aura, a flaw appeared in Bei Mingxiu's sealing technique, and the power of the blue chains that bound Chu Kuangren weakened. He took this opportunity to channel his 3 supreme Taoist physiques, unleashing his ferocious chi, sword chi, and transcendental force to break free. Then he dared not stay any longer. He quickly dashed into the distance and disappeared into the deep ocean in the blink of an eye. Bei Mingxiu and the others did not care about Chu Kuangren at this time. They all stared at the spatial crack in horror. A headless figure in white walked out from it. It was the headless lady who had slaughtered everyone on the island. It's her. D*mn. Why is she here? Bei Mingxiu obviously knew about the headless lady's existence. Although he came from the unknown lands, he was still extremely afraid of her. At that moment, he finally understood why Chu Kuangren had to escape. Not many people in this world could remain calm when facing the headless lady. Even sages and great sages were no exception. Run. Without another word, Bei Mingxiu dashed towards the bottomless chasm's gate. As for the lives of the other Scaled tribe members, he no longer cared. It was good enough that he could stay alive. However, before he could reach the bottomless chasm's gate, the headless lady gently waved her hand in his direction. An unimaginably terrifying force landed on Bei Mingxiu's body. In the blink of an eye, the 4th ruler of the Scaled tribe, a 7-step great sage wielding the golden halberd, exploded into a cloud of blood mist. All that was left was his head floating in the water. The headless lady took a step forward and came before the head. She held the head in her hands and pressed it onto her own head. However, the head did not belong to her. After pressing it twice, it did not connect. Hence, she gently squeezed with her slender fingers, and Bei Mingxiu's head was instantly crushed into a cloud of blood mist. After sensing her own head twice in a row, the headless lady seemed to be extremely enraged. The emperor's aura on her body surged and swept across the surroundings. Bei Mingfang, Bei Minghuan, and the Scaled King were the first to bear the brunt of the aura. Their bones and flesh were instantly crushed by the headless lady. Following that, a large amount of life essence began to dissipate from their bodies, and was absorbed by the headless lady, turning them into dried corpses. Eerie fluctuations spread as countless scaled tribe members' life essence were absorbed by the headless lady. They could not resist at all. The ocean within a radius of a few 100,000 kilometers was turned into a dead zone. In just a few breaths' time, the headless lady's massacre was comparable to the massacre that Chu Kuangren had killed for half a day. I bet the scaled tribe rarely went onto land, so how could they have known that the Heaven's Halberd was hidden within the ancient battlefield's Lu Kingdom? Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he looked at the golden halberd in his hand. When the three halberds merged together, they were the legendary Emperor weapons. Although he had the sacred emerald sword case, it was a support-type Emperor weapon. On the other hand, the Sea King's halberd was an offensive Emperor weapon. If he could wield the Sea King's halberd, his combat strength would increase tremendously. By then, killing a great sage like Bei Mingxia would be a piece of cake. At that thought, Chu Kuangren was eager to try it out. However, he did not recklessly merge them together. After looting the palace for a while, he turned around and returned to the surface. Meanwhile, on the surface, the news of Chu Kuangren's battle with the scaled tribe had spread far and wide. Many people were paying close attention to what was happening on the surface of the sea. After Chu Kuangren entered the sea, the entire sea was no longer calm. Waves surged, and terrifying energy waves constantly emanated from the bottom of the sea. That kind of energy waves made all the sages shudder. In the end, there was even an emperor's aura. Everyone was dumbfounded by that. Did the scaled tribe have an emperor-level trump card? After a while, the emperor's aura disappeared, and the sea gradually returned to its calm state. Then, corpses floated up from the sea. Within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers, countless corpses floated on the surface of the sea. A thick, pungent smell of blood permeated the entire surface of the sea. It was not an exaggeration to call the scene in front of them a living hell. All the sages were stunned. They dared not imagine what Chu Kuangren had done in the deep sea for there to be so many corpses. Even a sage would be shocked by the sight of it. Such monstrous killing intent, it's too terrifying. Where's Chu Kuangren? Is he still alive? Oh my god, there are at least tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of lives here. How could Chu Kuangren do it? Too scary, too scary. If Chu Kuangren doesn't die today, then from now on, we must never provoke this person ever again. This kind of crazy behavior is infuriating. The sages were scared half to death by Chu Kuangren. Although most of the saints viewed the common people as ants, it was absolutely unprecedented to kill so many of them at once. After a long while, Chu Kuangren still did not appear. Just when everyone thought that he was dead, they heaved a sigh of relief. A figure broke out of the water. Chapter 344. Chu Kuangren broke out of the water. His appearance caused the saints who were observing in secret to turn pale with fright. This guy is not dead yet. Chu Kuangren naturally knew that many sages were watching him, but he did not care. He simply said, "The scaled tribe has killed more than 100,000 people of my Black Heaven sect. I'll pay for it with my life. I, Chu Kuangren, will bear all the consequences of this. If any of the sages here are dissatisfied, I'll gladly oblige." With that, he ignored the shocked sages and disappeared from the surface of the sea. The sages' spiritual thoughts did not disperse as they continued to communicate with each other on the surface of the sea. Especially when the sages noticed the corpses on the surface of the sea. Their fear of Chu Kuangren reached its peak. Are those dried corpses? Suddenly someone noticed something. They realized that most of the corpses floating on the sea were dried corpses. Why do these dried corpses look so familiar? One of the sages said in shock. Aren't these the corpses of the people who were killed by the headless lady on the unnamed island? Their life essences have all been sucked dry. The sages only regained their senses when they heard that. The headless lady had left such a deep impression on them that they quickly remembered who she was. coupled with the terrifying emperor's aura that erupted from the sea not long ago. Many of them immediately thought of something. Could it be that the headless lady appeared when Chu Kuangren was fighting the scaled tribe, and killed so many of them? Is Chu Kuangren related to the headless lady? Many of the sages thought of the headless lady's overwhelming strength and the possibility that Chu Kuangren was related to the headless lady. Just the thought of it sent chills down their spines. Chu Kuangren is not someone we can mess with. If he really is related to the headless lady, not even 10 great sages on our side can do anything. The sages were even more afraid of Chu Kuangren as their imagination ran wild. After Chu Kuangren left the sea, he returned to the snowstorm sect's territory. It had only been a day since he left. The corpses on the shore had been buried. Just as Chu Kuangren returned, the godly phoenix Lil Red sensed his presence and quickly came over. "Brother, you're back. Are you alright?" "I'm fine." Chu Kuangren shook his head slightly. Then, he looked at the snowstorm sect leader and the others who had arrived with the divine phoenix and said, "The Black Heavens sect will send some people to help with the rebuilding of the snowstorm sect. As for the scaled tribe, I don't think they will dare to attack us again." A hint of killing intent flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. That murderous intent sent chills down one's spine. The snowstorm sect leader and the others knew that the scaled tribe must have suffered a huge setback. Chu Kuangren must have killed many of their people. Even sages might have perished. Even the Snowgale sect leader could not imagine how many people Chu Kuangren had massacred in the scaled tribe this time around. "Many thanks, sect master." The Snow Wind sect master cupped his hands. Yes. The remaining work of cleaning up the aftermath would be handed over to the Snowstorm sect's sect leader and the others. After returning, he would let Elder Ruyan send people to help rebuild. Very soon, the news of Chu Kuangren wreaking havoc in the scaled tribe and killing nearly 100 million scaled tribe members spread like wildfire across the entire firmament star. Regardless of whether it was the 4 regions or the outer seas, everyone was scared half to death. Since ancient times, it was extremely rare for someone to kill so many living beings in a day like Chu Kuangren did. Many sages had not even witnessed such a thing even once in their long lives. As time passed, Chu Kuangren's reputation in the 4 regions and the outer seas continued to grow. One could say that he was like the sun in the sky. Everyone was wary of this lunatic. While Chu Kuangren was at the peak of his fame, a few young sky prides of unknown origins gradually appeared on the firmament star. These young sky prides possessed terrifying combat strength. Some of them were even on par with sages, and all of them had a common name. They were called Empyrean Walkers. The forces they represented were the unknown lands of Firmament Star that few people knew about. Only the sages knew more or less about them. Somewhere in the Firmament Star, in a dazzling palace that was suspended in the air, an old man sat with his legs crossed. A handsome young man in a black robe suddenly walked in. He looked at the old man and said respectfully, "Greetings, honorable teacher." "Yes, Yi Xian, you'll be leaving the 7 Astral Palace tomorrow. You're leaving this time to spread the name of the 7 Astral Palace and fight for fortune in this era of great battles. I have a list of sky prides here. Pay attention to the people on this list. These people may very well become your opponents." The old man took out a list and handed it to the young man, Yi Xian. Yi Xian took the list, but a hint of disdain flashed across his eyes. "Honorable teacher, you're worrying too much. Although there are many sky prides in the outside world, most of them are below the level of a sage. How can they compare to me? My opponents are those Empyrean Walkers." "Huh." Suddenly, Yi Xian exclaimed softly. That was because one of the names on the list in his hand was placed on the first line, and it was written in red. Obviously, this person was not ordinary. Chu Kuangren. Who is this person? Yi Xian was curious. Upon hearing that name, the old man in front of Yi Xian fell silent for a while before he said, "He's your biggest enemy on this trip. He's the most unpredictable anomaly in the past 150,000 years." Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. He had never seen such a serious expression on his honorable teacher's face before. Did his honorable teacher have such an evaluation of Chu Kuangren? At that thought, Exin suddenly had an unwillingness to admit defeat. Chu Kuangren. I really want to meet this person. Remember, unless absolutely necessary, do not make an enemy out of this person. The old man said solemnly. I understand. Somewhere else. In a gloomy and treacherous hall, a young man in a black robe was sitting cross-legged with ferocious skulls moving back and forth on his body. The grand hall was filled with an eerie aura, and even the surrounding pillars were covered in frost. The young man slowly stood up and looked out of the grand hall. We'll be leaving Acheron Manor tomorrow. I wonder what kind of people the Empyrean walkers will be like this time. I'm looking forward to it. Doubtless, aside from those Empyrean walkers, you need to pay special attention to another person. If I'm not mistaken, this person will be even more difficult to deal with than those Empyrean walkers. An old voice suddenly rang out in the grand hall. The young man was curious. Oh, who is it? Black Heaven Sect leader, Chu Kuangren. Remember, if you meet Chu Kuangren, you must be extremely careful when you fight him. His combat strength is no less than a great sage's. A conversation could be heard in one of the pavilions. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man in white. In front of him was a young man in a green robe. His body was surrounded by strands of razor-sharp sword chi. Yes, honorable teacher. The young man nodded slightly, but there was a hint of eagerness in his eyes. In the firmament star, various unknown lands had appeared one after another in this era of great battles. They sent out their sky prides into the realm to fight for fortune. The Sky Pride's battle had entered a whole new phase. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.